We got the formalities out of the way. We just wanted to remind you that yesterday was fantastic. Shillette Cox opened up the bigger picture for us to really understand this nearshore delivery hub and what it entailed. Then we looked at the panel discussions that ran from global digital services to logistics, manufacturing to global tourism. We had our B2B meetings, we had our pitch platform, and now we are here at day 2. Again, I am Dr. Terry Carroll-Reed, and I will serve you as host today. The welcome will be brought to you by the Division Chief Investment and Trade Inter-American Development Bank, and it comes by way of Senor Jaime Granados. Por favor, put your hands together and let us welcome him.
Good morning, everyone, on this second day of Invest in Jamaica 2022, and thank you all in attendance today. First, I would like to thank Jamaica's authorities, including the Minister, Dr. Norman Dunn. I had the pleasure of chatting with him a little bit this morning, and of course to JAMPRO for all the joint work for the organization of this important investment summit. My team and I are happy to see the excellent results of close collaboration and joint efforts with JAMPRO's team. Diane, you've made it again. Congratulations. Yesterday, we had the privilege of listening to various enriching panel conversations on productive sectors that are critical to the country's economic growth and development. These include sectors such as knowledge-based services, logistics, manufacturing, and tourism. The day was capped off with intense B2B matchmaking sessions in the afternoon that resulted in important business leads and opportunities for Jamaica, which is why we are here supporting this event. On this second day, and the last day, unfortunately, we will be discussing Jamaica as an investment destination in agribusiness, special economic zones, and the financial landscape. To begin today, I want to make a deep dive in an industry that is a priority for both the country of Jamaica as well as for the IDB's Trade and Investment Division, which I lead. And I'm talking about knowledge-based services. To make sure that we are all on the same page today and avoid confusions, let me first define what knowledge services are, or knowledge-based services. Usually found under the WTO nomenclature of other business services, examples of knowledge-based services range from, but are of course not limited to, software development, video and animation production, legal and accounting services, architectural and seismic services, data analytics, web design, telemedicine, and many, many more that you are already familiar here in Jamaica. Jamaica exports of these services ascend to $929 million in 2021. This represented a more than 110% growth from 2020 and accounted for more than 30% of total services exports, which, if we realize that the latter figure includes touristic services, it is easy to realize that this figure in Jamaica is quite substantial, given how beautiful and attractive this country is for tourists. Having said this, let me give you 5 reasons that we at the IDB believe countries like Jamaica should continue heavily betting on the development of these industries. The first one, service exporters are more productive than goods exporters. Studies show that the former have productivity levels 7% points higher than the latter. Second, service companies are important employment generators and contribute to the diversification of country export baskets. In fact, the services sector absorbs on average 63% of employment in the region. Number 3, because they are not subject to volatility in commodity market prices, service exports tend to be more resilient than good exports, and this is particularly something relevant now during the current COVID-19 crisis. During this crisis, while the travel sector contracted by 68% worldwide in 2020, particularly in the Q4, some services such as technology and computing managed to grow 9% in the same period. Number 4, knowledge-based services exports show even higher growth. Between 2005 and 2018, the cumulative growth of knowledge-based services global exports reached 145% compared to less than 90% for goods. Number 5, Since knowledge-based services companies tend to have greater digital and technological components, this implies lower initial capital investments, which make this sector more prone to investment by SMEs and individual entrepreneurs. And I would like to add a sixth dimension, the fact that very often, when we have found this, the gender dimension of the service export industry is higher than other services and good production. So there are 6 major reasons why services, particularly knowledge-based services, are particularly important. And this is not only pure theory, it permeates into practice and reality. International firms are already setting their eyes and investing in Jamaica. Over 65 companies that offer call centers or BPO in Jamaica, creating more than 40,000 jobs and contributing $900 million to the economy annually. For example, Jampro announced that Ventrica, a leading UK full-service customer manager outsourcer, specialized in customer insights, data analytics, and social media management, has chosen to set up operations in the country and plans to employ up to 300 people in its first year of business. I mean, we are certain that many other firms will follow suit. Given these converging tides, what are we doing at the IDB to support the region in this matter? We see a very clear opportunity here to further diversify from trading goods to trading services, specifically knowledge-based services. To this end, we are working with special dedication on knowledge-based services in several countries where we have approved programs for more than $130 million US in this area. Specifically in Jamaica in 2018, the IDB approved the Skills Development Program for Global Services for $15 million. Its main objective is to promote the growth of the global services sector, the GSS in Jamaica, particularly in higher value-added segments, by providing the sector with better skilled workers and by increasing Jamaica's institutional capacity to attract FDI and increase exports. Under this loan, we have not only supported initiatives such as Invest Jamaica 2022, but also events like Outsource to Jamaica 2021, hosted by private sector focused organizations such as the Global Services Association of Jamaica. Second, activities to encourage risk assessment and strategic development of the sector such as the Global Digital Services Strategy, a disaster risk management framework, and a sustainability plan for the industries. Supported efforts also to enhance the image and awareness related to the GSS in Jamaica to further enhance investors' interest and confidence in the sector. So to finish my remarks this morning, I want to give you a glimpse of a few of the sectors that will be discussed throughout the day. Jamaica's agribusiness industry contributes around 15% of the country's GDP, and its size ascends to almost $2 billion. Jamaica's investment opportunities reside in high-demand products. We have heard already products such as yam, potatoes, Scotch bonnet pepper, ginger, pimento, cocoa, coffee, papaya, rum, sauces, and spices, and many others that we have enjoyed throughout our stay here in Jamaica these days. Second, in terms of special economic zones, Jamaica possesses the largest port community system in the English-speaking Caribbean with 6 seaports and 2 airports. To this end, the bank's integration and trade sector is supporting the development of smart port roadmaps in Jamaica via non-reimbursable technical cooperations. In fact, tomorrow we're going to visit some of these ports, and we brought a lot of Latin American people to this event so as to see this nice experience here in Jamaica. Also, the country's Global Logistic Hub initiative is expected to create close to 90,000 direct jobs. 3, in terms of the financial sector landscape, I want to point out that the Jamaica Stock Exchange was recognized by Bloomberg as #1 performing exchange in the world in 2015 and 2018. Yeah, exactly. That deserves wide recognition. While the country market's capitalization increased from 35% to 85% of GDP from 2010 to 2020, a figure which is much larger than the Latin American and the Caribbean average of 46%, according to IDB's studies generated this year. Without further ado, I want to congratulate everyone in this meeting. We have found this event particularly inspiring. We have enjoyed the country's hospitality, warmth, charm, and culture. This is without a doubt the place to be. Let us continue being enlightened by hearing about Jamaica's investment potential from Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, State Minister of Jamaica's Ministry of Industry, Investment, and Commerce. Thank you very much.
This is the place to be. I liked how that sounded. Thank you so very much, Jaime Granados, Division Chief, Investment and Trade, Inter-American Development Bank. Now, the person tasked with the opening remarks is a gentleman that I have had the pleasure of engaging with, I think, the most this year. Doctor of Pharmacy degree, Master of Science in Industrial Business, Bachelor of Science in Management, Economics, and Accounting. Bright, 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 bright. If you're wondering who I'm talking about, it is the State Minister, Ministry of Industry, Investment, and Commerce. Please welcome the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn.
Good morning. Senator, the Honorable Albin Hill, my Minister of Industry, Investment, and Commerce, and I have to say it that way because I don't want anybody to claim him. But I also want you to do something for me today. Could you just stand and give him a warm welcome, and for all the work that he is doing, leading this ministry. Stand, please. The Honorable, you all heard that right? Anything I want. The Honorable Colonel Charles, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Permanent Secretary, Sansia Bennett Templer, Ministry of Industry, Investment, and Commerce, Her Excellency Judith Slater, British High Commissioner, Mr. Tariq Ali, General Manager, Country Department Group and Country Representative in Jamaica, IDB Group, Mr. James Scriven, CEO, IDB Invest, and all other members of the IDB team, Mrs. Melanie Sobrati, Chairman, Jampro, and CEO, Stanley Motors Limited, Miss Diane Edwards, President of Jampro, and we all saw what happened yesterday, the recognition of the work that Diane continues to do for Jamaica. Mrs. Stephanie Sterling, Chairman, Jamaica Business Development Corporation, other distinguished panelists, speakers, and participants. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm and rainy but cool Jamaica morning. Welcome. It's indeed a pleasure to be here today on day 2 of Invest Jamaica 2022, be staged by Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, an agency of the Ministry of Industry, Investment, and Commerce. As Minister of State in this ministry, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our supporting partner, the Inter-American Development Bank. And to all our local and international participants here today, thank you for joining us. We look forward to an engaging conversation on real business and investment opportunities here in Jamaica. Yesterday, we heard from the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, who emphasized that there has never been a more exciting time to invest in Jamaica. We just heard it from our IDB rep. Senator the Honorable Albin Hill, Minister of Investment, Industry, Investment, and Commerce, delved deeper into the theme of the conference, Jamaica, the nearshore delivery hub in the Caribbean, underpinning its strategic connections across the core sectors of agriculture, agribusiness, manufacturing, logistics, and special economic zone, global digital services, and tourism. Jamaica's economy is maturing from one of stability to significant growth, as outlined yesterday by Dr. the Honorable Nigel Clarke, Minister of Finance and Public Service. He demonstrated resilience and continued strengthening of Jamaica's macroeconomic fundamentals, transitioning from achieving and maintaining economic stability to institutionalizing economic independence. The Logistics Panel showcased the significant number of recent developments in logistics, and we can anticipate today's panel on the Special Economic Zone will build on those discussions to reinforce Jamaica's potential in the global logistics market. Statista research published on October the 14th, 2022, that global logistics market is expected and is projected to reach across approximately US 14 billion by 2027. And the Jamaican government is laser focused on gaining a significant portion of this global market share. One of the most sector affected during the pandemic was manufacturing, which nevertheless has shown growth of 3.5% over the July to September quarter, with over 300 companies in the sector expanding towards increasing their export. And if there's one thing you know about my minister, and he always said it, if there's one word that everyone needs to know and is on the tip of their lips, is export. But what I found particularly thought-provoking was a conversation on the future of global tourism, which presented insight on the importance of sustainability. It also explored how the green economy will impact and influence the global tourism benefit both local communities through linkages and social integration driven by ESG principles. A key component in this conference is the focus on investment projects. The pitch platform highlighted attractive project opportunities in integrated solid waste management, cultured marble, and limestone. The presentation by JAMPRO briefly touched on the deliberate focus on prioritizing investment projects here in Jamaica. And I'm happy to share that the National Investment Policy has been approved by Cabinet. It has since been submitted to Parliament and is currently scheduled for tabling. The policy focuses on 11 main contributory policies, issues towards improving and increasing private direct investments in Jamaica. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a major signal of the Jamaican government's commitment to engender a business environment that bolsters and enhances economic development and growth through sustainable investment. The National Investment Policy also underpins the National Business Portal, which is intended to drive improvements in the business environment by shifting government online, while also ensuring to incentivize and to prioritize investment, which are critical to Jamaica's sustainable economic growth. The central theme for Invest 2022 is a recognition of Jamaica as a nearshore delivery hub of the Caribbean, therefore aligning with the National Investment Policy. I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to engage fully in the B2B meetings that will unfold throughout the day. You will gain useful insight from scheduled high-level panel discussions. But I also invite you to participate in the pitch platform, which will close out an amazing experience with tonight's planned network event, just as we experienced last night. The discussions will focus on agribusiness, which is one of the sectors of focus given the importance of food security in a post-pandemic era and the experiences of the Russian-Ukraine war. To underpin the discussion yesterday on logistics and manufacturing today, we will discuss SEZ and how the framework that Jamaica has created can present an attractive option for global investments. And finally, the area that is important across all sectors, a discussion on finance, will close out the plenary sessions for today. In closing, I commend the Jamaica Promotions Corporation's JAMPRO, the agency from the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, which led in organizing this conference. I encourage you to engage members of the team regarding your investment projects or business opportunity, as they are very knowledgeable and experienced in providing the best in-class facilitation for support. We have a supportive government, a mature business environment, investment opportunities, and expert support. Let us be sure to continue our conversation on investment. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do business. Invest in Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a very thorough and comprehensive overview. And by the way, as we stood and applauded our Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, he also goes by the name, the Minister of Business. I will even second to say that he's probably one of the most accessible ministers. He always makes himself available to advise and to help. And in fact, to this day, he's the only minister who I've ever heard on multiple occasions give out his phone number from the stage to say, if you have an idea, if you have a business, and you might be having some hiccups, I will help you. Give him a call. My number is 876 doop 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 doop. And I want to thank him so very much for being that type of minister who is not just passionate on stage, but off stage as well. Again, thank you for being our gracious host. So now we move to our very first presentation of the morning. The topic, investments from the private sector for adaptation, a pending challenge for the Caribbean. Our presenter, James Scriven, CEO of IDB Invest. Please make him welcome.
That's an old photo. And before formal introductions, I also wanted to thank the Master of Ceremony of reminding that Brazil is not the only team in the World Cup. There is a white and blue color over here that's playing today at 2 o'clock. I know that we're the underdogs, but Messi does surprise us sometimes. But with that, y muchas gracias por el reconocimiento. So I wanted to say that it's a real honor to be part of this Investment Forum Jamaica 2022 conference. I wanted to start by thanking our host of the day, Senator the Honorable Owen Hill, Minister of Business, Investment and Commerce, and also, as I heard yesterday, Minister for Business. The Honorable and our big boss, the Honorable Nigel Clark. As he was mentioned yesterday, he's the President, the Chairman of the Board of Governors of the IDB Group. The Honorable Charles Jr., Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, the Honorable Senator, the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Minister of the Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, State Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Her Excellency Judy Slater, British High Commissioner, Mrs. Melanie Subrate, Chairman of JAMPRO and CEO of Stanley Mota Limited, Ms. Diane Edwards, President of JAMPRO, and Ms. Stephanie Sterling, Chairman of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, and my fellow friends from IDB Group, started by the General Manager of this region, Tariq Ali, and all very, very welcome. This session is extremely timely. One, I would say that a few weeks ago, I was the IDB representative on COP26 in Egypt. As you all know, it's the Global Conference on Climate. The topic of adaptation is one of the 4 priorities of COP. And while we all know the consequences of global emissions, we're only understanding now the consequences on our livelihoods of climate and how this climate crisis is affecting us. So I did want to start and discuss what this means for countries of all Latin America and the Caribbean, but in particular for the Caribbean. Just as an example, just to prevent climate-related crisis, we need to invest in Latin America and the Caribbean $18 billion a year to adapt our physical infrastructure to what could be. This seems impossible to do, but as I learned throughout the years, the word impossible is not in a Jamaican dictionary. We all heard the amazing recovery story presented by the Most Honorable Prime Minister yesterday, and how that story of resilience and fiscal discipline was maintained throughout what was one of the worst crises that the world has lived has been an amazing story. While that is a formal story, we also all remember what happened in the Winter Olympics in 1988 with the famous bobsledge team, which had an amazing performance without having snow or ice in the island to be able to practice. So impossible is not in Jamaica's dictionary. What we're trying to do over here is find ways in which we can adapt and be more resilient to the effects of climate. And 9 out of the 20 countries that are most vulnerable to climate reside in Latin America and the Caribbean. And this is extremely important to know. We're not the polluters of the world, but we're suffering the consequences of those who are. And while we're trying to adapt our physical infrastructure, most of the investments that we're seeing in the world are going to adapting global emissions, which is perfect, and we are a big supporter of it. But only a small percentage of that is going to adaptation. So for example, only 7% of financing for adaptation is financed by the private sector. All the rest is financed by governments. And there is a big and increasing role to play from the private sector, particularly in adaptation. So I want to give 3 examples of what in IDB Invest we're doing to be able to invest, particularly when it comes to adaptation. 1, we have with us today Maricela Alvarenga, who's our head of financial institutions, and she's working with over 100 banks in Latin America and the Caribbean to be able to invest in green funding. What does that mean? We lend to banks for them to be able to lend to businesses to adapt to a world that is very different than what we had before. So that's one of them, as we call green lending activities. A second example of that is how we work directly with corporates to adapt their energy sources, moving away from fossil fuels. And we've got a number of examples, but I want to refer to, for example, one of agribusiness sector that we did in Mexico, a project called Negocio Agrícola San Enrique. The team is helping to design a mangrove restoration plan to prevent coastal erosion and sea level rises that affect shrimp farms. This is something we could repeat across the coastlines of Jamaica. We're also helping industries with green building certifications. For example, Casa en Guatemala is developing a tool that includes resilience and adaptation in measures in green building certifications. Closer to home over here in the Caribbean, we're helping in Trinidad and Tobago, the University of West Indies, to support the government's push to electrifying the country's vehicle fleet. We're doing this by consulting and working with car distribution companies, electric vehicle owners, non-government organizations, and private sector stakeholders. We're innovating and promoting green hydrogen, and we're doing it, as an example, in the country of Barbados, where we developed a renewable Barbados project developed by Hydrogen de France and Rubens. Lastly, I want to go closer to a discussion that we had yesterday about tourism. Tourism is acutely impacted by climate, as you know, and as you know better than I, 33% of the GDP in this country is represented by tourism. So too often, the effects of climate or acts of God do have an effect over coastals, and particularly when we see the beautiful coast that Jamaica has, we see that most of the hotels are being affected and the tourism has an enormous impact. So one example is Stefan Wright, who's sitting here, led an effort with a group called Grupo Piñero, one of the leading hotels companies with 27 properties in the Dominican Republic, Mexico, over here in Jamaica and Spain. There is a team that is innovating with nature-based solutions using mangrove swamps to protect the ecosystem and make it more resilient to climate. So we're learning from all these experiences because the private sector increasingly is playing a role in adaptation. Looking forward, I represent the private sector arm of the IDB group, and I did wanted to say what we're here for and how can we help. First, IDB has an opportunity to multiply its impact through a more intentional originate-to-share business model. Many of you discussed yesterday that there were development institutions, but there are many impact investors in the world looking for places. And when yesterday the Prime Minister, the Minister, the various ministers talk about becoming billion-dollar investments, they are those impact investors around the world looking for those billion-dollar investments. And here is Jamaica with its physical infrastructure, its fiscal discipline, raising its hand saying, I'm the place to invest. Second, we focus a lot on the economic impact, direct and indirect economic impact of our work. We look at development priorities such as job creation, food security, MSME, a conversation that we had very closely with the minister yesterday, financial inclusion, governance, and physical infrastructure. Third and not least, we will continue to count on partners like Jamaica. Jamaica is a large shareholder for the IDB Invest, for the IDB group, and it's the hub for IDB Invest. So I just wanted to say that we feel at home over here, and with that, a big thank you to the organizers and all for letting me share my thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, James. He's such a brave soul. Came up in front of the Brazilian fans and said, Viva Argentina, Viva Messi. I love it. I am rooting for you, James, all the way, okay? Thank you so very much for your presentation and again for reminding us how important the partnership with IDB is and how every single day it seems as if the team there recommits and drives for sustainable social and economic development within the countries that they partner with. And certainly what you've been able to do is empower and enable individuals, and communities, and by extension, nations. We thank you so very much for your presentation and for the support of IDB. So we're going to jump right into our first panel discussion. Again, we discussed global services yesterday, logistics, manufacturing, the future of global tourism. Something that is big is food security, agri-tech. Where are we? Where are we going? What are the things we need to be considering? Panel discussion number 5 is about agribusiness, improvement, resilience, and sustainability of Jamaica's food supply. Investments in Jamaica's agribusiness sector is on the rise and is reinforced by the opportunity to leverage Jamaica's strategic location, risk mitigating advantages of leveraging agtech and new climate-smart technologies. This session will share insight on success stories of investments in agriculture and the supporting initiatives from Jamaica's 4-year National Agriculture Strategy. Our moderator for this particular session is Derek Nemhard, Managing Director, Jamaica Flour Mills. Mr. Nemhard has over 25 years experience in agribusiness. In January 2007, he was promoted to the position of Managing Director of both Jamaica Flour Mills and Jamaica Rice Milling, becoming JFM's first Jamaican MD in its 40-year existence. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for our moderator, Derek Nemhard. And I take pleasure in welcoming the panelists, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries. Minister Charles Jr. holds a Bachelor of Science double major in biochemistry and zoology and a Bachelor of Laws. Additionally, he holds a Master of Law degree from the George Washington University Law School in Washington, D.C., where he was awarded a scholarship for academic performance. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr. We welcome Michael Chorsky, Operating Partner, Pegasus Capital Advisors, LP. He's a senior investment and operating executive with a record of building entrepreneurial enterprises and managing alternative funds and portfolios. He has 20 years of deal experience in venture and growth and 10 years of operating experience in technology, CPG, and sustainable food production. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Michael Chorsky. Last but not least, I know this gentleman, Colonel Jamie Ogilvie, VP High Pro Division Jamaica Broilers Group. Mr. Ogilvie has engaged in and developed strategic partnerships with both national and regional agri-industry stakeholders and led agri-market expansion initiatives in Jamaica and the region. Ladies and gentlemen, this is discussion number 5, agribusiness.
Morning, everyone. Agribusiness sector is very diverse, and we only have a very short 60 minutes, so we'll jump right into our panel discussion. First to you, Minister. What is the thrust of your Grow Smart, Eat Smart initiative that we currently have in process?
One, two. Ready? Thank you. The Grow Smart, Eat Smart, well, firstly, good morning to everyone. Grow Smart, Eat Smart is a message that the Ministry of Agriculture is sending, which says that we are driving production through efficiency. We understand the need to achieve food security. We understand the need for the ministry to present to the country a strong backbone for sustainable growth and development. And if we're going to do so, we have to look on all of the variables in the sector and define a pathway to use our limited resources, our limited land, in a more efficient way to increase productivity, to reduce post-harvest losses, and to do 3 things. To make investments from the government perspective, to encourage investments as we are now, and to facilitate investments. As you said, there's a lot that we can say, but I'll give you one example of each. The government has made the largest investment in the development of our irrigation systems, $4 billion project in a short period of time that will allow for us to push irrigation to some of the best farming spaces in our country. In terms of facilitation, we have several business facilitation platforms, such as Alex, such as Jamis, which allow for persons to get, consumers and producers to get market information. And in terms of encouraging investment, well, we're doing this right now. And we work with Minister Hill and Minister Dunn, and we work with other agencies in government to make sure that we create an environment that is inviting. So we want to have a structure and a framework of resilience that will allow an investor to see Jamaica as the place of choice for you to bring that investment, because you know that we have looked on our import bill, we've disaggregated it, and we can show you where your investment will be protected and will provide you with a revenue that is sensible. Jamaica is ready and open and welcoming for investment in agriculture.
Thank you, Minister. That's an excellent segue for us to move to Michael. It's no secret about Pegasus Capital and your sustainability as far as agriculture is concerned. How do you see Jamaica and the environment for investment here in agriculture?
Well, first of all, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm here actually on behalf of my boss, Craig Kogut, who couldn't make it. So on his behalf, I apologize. But I want to just thank JamPro and the ministers and the prime ministers for such a warm welcome. I think it would probably be helpful for me to explain what Pegasus does. We are an investor, so it's wonderful to be here. But what is unique about us, and to follow on what James has just said, we became accredited by an entity called the Green Climate Fund as an accredited investment manager. And that means that we have specific purpose from a sustainability standpoint and an impact standpoint on our funds. So we manage two funds. One's called the Subnational Climate Fund. It's a $750 million mitigation fund. So what does that mean in the world of, I just spent 2 weeks at COP27 in Egypt, so it was, while the subject of COP27 this year was adaptation that James just spoke about, prior years have been about mitigation. Mitigation is simply, how do we reduce carbon emissions? So everything that we do in our portfolio has to have a measurable carbon mitigation impact. So for me, I've got a background in agriculture and in aquaculture. Mitigation is in the soil. 40% of carbon emissions come from energy. Another 40% comes from agriculture. So those are two pretty broad industries in which we can change practices to have mitigation impacts. So what we like about the agricultural space is, for example, in Jamaica, 15% of GDP relates to agriculture. That relates to soil. What can we do differently from a cultivation methodology standpoint to enhance the sequestration capabilities of the soil, which is a resource that belongs to this country and to its farmers? So what we've done is a very kind of real project is we are developing a large coconut orchard project in St. Thomas in Golden Grove. It's not monoculture. The key for us is to have polyculture. Yes, you have coconuts. They're going to take 5 or 6 years to mature, but in the interim, you can have ground cover crops that are, from an investment perspective, provide very short-term cash flow, but more importantly, it's been proven scientifically through some of the work that the Rockefeller Foundation has done in particular, if you do intercropping ground cover, you're going to increase your yields by 30%. So what we want to do is, yes, we want to be a grower, but more importantly, we want to develop and fund infrastructure development that can be utilized by our project and also by the small farm holders that exist proximate to our projects. That will enhance the value chain in Jamaica. It'll provide income uplift to farmers. It will be better, obviously, and kind of, I don't mean to be kind of really dismissive about it, but like there's a need to kind of make farming cool again. Like, who wants to go be a farmer, right? I mean, I think it's awesome, but if we can increase and improve the incomes of farmers, then farming becomes cool, and there's an attraction to place, to country, to crop, and oh, by the way, I think that has an impact on health as well. So that's a long-winded response. So let me just quickly, the other fund that Pegasus manages is called the Global Fund for Coral Reefs, and it is a $500 million fund, and it is all about adaptation, because I think a challenge, in fact, I know a challenge for coral reefs is, and I would love to hear it if someone has a different viewpoint, but there's not really a business model for a restoration project for coral reefs. Yes, there's Coral Vida, but I don't know the customer. Unless Carnival Cruise wants to stand up and be the customer for the incremental development on coral reefs, we need to have adaptive businesses that we fund from an infrastructure perspective, where their purpose, in addition to some sort of capital return, is to ameliorate the deterioration of those reefs. That's kind of adaptation in practice, and a lot of what we do there is we do farming, we do sustainable fisheries, we do a lot of ecotourism, because as we all know, particularly in Jamaica, ecotourism, to the extent that there is a commitment from a project to the restoration of reefs, well, that's kind of where the funding comes from, and the project itself becomes the customer of restoration.
Thank you, Michael. That was pretty extensive. And then there's obviously a wide scope for investment in Jamaica. Jamaica Broilers is already a massive investor in Jamaica. Jamie, looking at current global trends, what do you think Jamaica can do to leverage food security?
Well, thanks, Derek. Thanks again to JAMPRO for having Jamaica Broilers participate. We are an investor, but we are also a producer. And I think when you look across the landscape, and a couple of the presenters yesterday alluded to some of them, but certainly there is a great Jamaica has over 200,000 small farmers, and they produce great quality food at a particular level. But there is a gap on a more commercial level. We have a ready export market right here in our tourism belt that hotels and other businesses, industries that support that industry really do have a need that needs to be supplied on a scale that small farmers are not really suited to do. And certainly there is an opportunity for large-scale commercial agricultural investment, including further processing of primary outputs to fill a need that is available here, but also will then automatically dovetail into increased exports. And the big thing that this is going to do for us as a country is going to help grow our own economy. Every time the agricultural sector grows, the country's GDP grows. And I think if we can make that next step from subsistence, local domestic production to satisfy domestic needs, to large-scale commercial production, satisfy our industries here as well as the export market, I think that's something that we really need to do to kind of move it to the next level.
To that point, I know historically we've had an issue with exports, particularly of meat products. Is that still problematic?
Well, different countries have different rules of what they will allow in and so on. In the Caribbean, there's still a fair degree of flexibility. But even before we get to that, there is still our food import bill is just outrageous. There's so much local demand that is unmet. Yesterday it was alluded to the challenge with goat meat, how much we import. And you'd think that because Jamaicans love mutton so much, there'd be far greater investment in goat meat. There are great opportunities, and I think we just need to make that balance between our local markets and export opportunities. But yeah.
Okay, Minister, it's always been said that we have more Jamaicans living outside of Jamaica than inside. So how do you best see that we can leverage the diaspora in taking part in the agribusiness sector?
That's a good question. Just this past month, I actually went to New York, went to Washington, D.C., where we engaged the diaspora directly, informing them of the context within which investment can be had in Jamaica, and looking on the perspective of why we need large investment and what that really means. How do we define it? You know, if you're an investor, I found that most investors want to know the policies, the plans, what's the performance in the country, and what are the projections. And so, you know, we went to the diaspora and we said to them, listen, we have had 6 consecutive quarters of growth in agriculture and fisheries. We've seen the last 2 years, between 2020 and 21, the highest recorded production ever of domestic crops in our country. 697,679 in 2020, 770,456 tons in 2021, and we are on target to beat that. So it means that we are doing some things, we're in right and we're moving in the right direction. The other important fact for context is that with all that production, we still have not yet hit even 50% of the demand for the expanding tourism sector locally. And we are part of a CARICOM 25 by 2025 agenda which calls on us to contribute significantly and positively to the reduction of the import bill regionally. And that's a whole other sector of opportunities for investors. So if you are in the diaspora and you're Jamaican and you're expanding your business across the United States or the UK, you need the Jamaican products. And for you to assist and support investing in that primary producer being able to access the financing to do what you need, which is increase production and productivity, is one of the best ways. Now we have to de-risk agriculture because investors want to know that if they make that investment, it's protected. And the government has spent and continues to spend $1 billion in an incentive program to support farmers. We continue to spend the largest investment in creating the infrastructure for irrigation. We're doing soil fertility mapping. We're doing genetics in terms of improving our genetic breed for small ruminants. And we have looked and disaggregated the import bill to see where there are opportunities for our investors. Now, just to close, with all of that, we understand that there are still significant challenges. Trade larceny is one. Climate change is another. The vulnerabilities that flow from uncertainties in terms of the pandemic and the conflict. So what are we doing as a government to show that we have the patterns and the projections that even though everything is not all perfect now, we are moving in the right direction? We look on the numbers, we look on the policies, we look on the legislative changes, and we can present to investors a clear picture that now is the best time for you to invest. If you are diasporan and you have land in Jamaica, now is the time to take your grandmother and grandfather's 200 acres and make that investment. Now is the time to spend that money on mechanizing so that you can deal with a lot of the challenges and issues that we have, because Jamaica has established that we are growing agriculture and we have put in place the legislation, and we are moving even for 2023 to attack even further some of the big challenges through strategic partnerships with JAMPRO, with the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and with the private sector. We have a Food Security Council that is a big element in terms of the partnership that we have to present the enabling environment and framework that any investor, whether it is a Jamaican overseas or somebody who just loves Jamaica and wants to invest, can see this as the best time to jump now into a pattern that is positive and a projection that's showing you your investment will flow and will create big revenue for your business.
Thank you for that, Minister. Coming out of that, a two-part question. One first to you, Jamie. A large part of our import bill is actually grain. You're a large importer of soybean meal and corn. We ourselves import wheat. A part of the thrust has been to have import substitution. Has your company ever looked at, and I know that predial larceny has been an issue, looked at the growing of corn or soybeans to produce some of the grain requirements that you have?
Yes, we have. Maybe about 15 years ago, we actually went into it ourselves with a pilot. At the time, there were some developmental issues with pests and managing the biosecurity of the crop. As it is now, we're actually speaking with a group who is establishing operations here in Jamaica now to begin to grow corn. And those discussions are pretty well advanced. It includes the ministry and JAMPRO as well. So there's that taking place now. It will only partially satisfy the need for raw material. Certainly, the volumes of animal feed that is consumed in Jamaica is significant relative to our land space and productive capacity. But certainly, we are always looking for opportunities to be a little bit more less reliant on export sources for our raw materials.
And the second part is for you, Michael. I mean, as an investor, is predial larceny something that you have considered? Is it something that is an obstacle to investment in Jamaica? Could you repeat the question? Predial larceny, stealing of crops and items that may be grown. Is it a hindrance to your investment in Jamaica?
I don't think it would be a hindrance. I mean, given our role kind of as a principal investor and the scale with which we want to deploy capital, you know, we're looking for developers that know what they're doing and they can come to us with a very baked project. So, I mean, we like to see in general, kind of on principle, you know, a support of local crops. For example, we're working on a very interesting project where we're reintroducing the broad cultivation of fonio in Mali and in West Africa. You know, something like that where there's a lot of kind of abandoned crops that have traditionally grown in a particular region, kind of going back to the focus on soil. Like, that's kind of what nature put there in the first place. So this idea of introducing corn, maize, kind of, you know, wheats from the outside, I'm a little bit cautious of, frankly. But you know, you also need to produce calories to feed folks. So we don't really have a restriction necessarily based on crop. I think it's dependent upon what the soil can provide.
If I could just add, in relation to predial larceny, because we may have investors right now who see it as an impediment. Our responsibility as a government is not to hide from the facts, but to expose to you the work that is being done in terms of policies, legislation, and just programs on the ground to treat with the issue. So the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, through our predial larceny prevention unit, has worked with the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Throughout the whole year, we have had sensitization sessions and workshops with all of the police, raising their capacity to address these issues, and we have seen the results. We have revised and are in the process of looking at expanding and revitalizing our NATES program, which allows for us to have animal tracking, and it's the use of innovation and technology to protect the investment of those farmers and investors. We are collaborating now with experts and stakeholders who have formed a team that has done a full assessment analysis of the sector to see what steps we could take to build resilience in terms of mitigating against spray and larceny, and introducing amendments to legislation, and simple things as situational prevention, fencing, lighting, operations that can help for us to say to an investor, we can protect your investment. And lastly, we have, through the Agro Invest Corporation and the Ministry, developed concepts called agro-parks and production zones. And in those agro-parks, we facilitate in terms of providing infrastructure for farmers to come in, sometimes as a collective, and be able to rely on the government's investment to help them to increase their production. Those spaces are spaces that we are looking on as safe zones. So to start, we have put in place the infrastructure that will help for us to minimize and mitigate against predator larceny in those spaces, and we intend in the next year to present again a slew of solutions that will not eradicate, but will certainly help to have a gradual elimination, with everyone collaborating around predator larceny and other challenges. It's not just predator larceny, we see other challenges as well. The important thing for an investor to know is that the government sees the issue, is working on the issue, and can present for you results that establish that we are a country where you can produce, and where you can produce year after year more safely.
And I know that has been done in large measure. And therefore, Minister, under the theme food security is everyone's business, I mean, what do you see as the future for the business of agriculture in Jamaica?
I mean, I see agriculture as being an opportunity for our youngsters to be creative. I mean, we see agriculture in segments where Jamaica will be a space where you can still say yes to fresh and get our fresh produce. But at the same time, if it's not fresh, we'll have the necessary cold chain storage and technology to preserve and store over time to extend the value chain and to be focusing on value-added products that will allow Jamaicans to be able to tap into those niche areas across the globe. We see agriculture as linked to all of the other sectors and ministries because we are the backbone. And that's why we say grow smart, eat smart. The future of agriculture is not just cultivating more. It's a deliberate, strategic approach to creating the kind of innovation that will see efficiency in farming, and a deliberate approach to have a nutritious range of products where we'll grow smart and eat smart and live smart, and have a Jamaica that can contribute locally through self-sufficiency, that can contribute regionally by taking advantage of quoted and the opportunities we have to be able to supply the region, and that can say to the world, our diaspora and the several other countries that are asking us to increase our tilapia production, increase and expand into sea urchins and pelagic fisheries and other opportunities, where we will be able to present a consistent quality of Jamaican products that will see double-digit growth for our country and opportunities for Jamaicans and others to expand their business using and utilizing our local products as the main and secret ingredient to what we see. We have enormous intellectual property potential here in Jamaica because brand Jamaica is on its own globally. So our coffee, our cocoa, our ginger, our pepper, and I could go on. Our yam, the demand for it is enormous. And the future for us is us presenting to the world a sufficient, consistent supply of those quality products.
Thank you, Minister. And in that vein, Michael, sustainable agriculture. Historically, Jamaica has looked at exporting agricultural products in their raw state. Agro-processing is where we'll have value added. Is that, how does your investment firm look at agro-processing in Jamaica and the value added that they can do?
Well, as an infrastructure investor, we definitely want to fund and build value add here. I mean, it makes sense for the country. It makes sense from an investment perspective. So it's integral to what we're doing. I had a wonderful kind of spontaneous meeting with Shelley Haven, if she's here. And this gets from a value add perspective. This gets into kind of the digitization that the government is talking about from a government services perspective. But I think there's also a very, very interesting opportunity to kind of integrate the business services element, technologically speaking. And Jamie talked about this a little bit, but to kind of put in the hands some sort of technical capabilities, put in the hands of the farmers, right? So, at a global kind of level for the government and for the sector, we know what is grown, we know what should be grown, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending upon demand, so that you can tune using technology what exactly you want to grow, and there's a communication between seller, farmer, and buyer. And from our perspective, and I think from a methodology perspective, to then have a means to inform, educate how something should be grown to the extent that there can be improvements. So we see that as a value add that's really important across everything that we do in agriculture.
Great, and to you, Jamie, I mean, Jamaica Broilers already does some great deal of value added on some of their chicken products. How do you see the development of the chicken industry to have more value added for products both here and potentially to export?
It's actually our fastest growth area right now. Jamaica is a very mature market, and Jamaicans eat a lot of chicken meat. But what we've discovered is the value-added products, not just here, but in the region, and it's our fastest export category. There's great opportunity, great scope, and I think that even outside of chicken, as I started out by saying, there's so many other agricultural products that are ripe. We heard yesterday about all the orchard crops, and there are a specific number of crops that the ministry has identified for increased production and increased growth. And I would say to investors who are interested in coming here, there are great opportunities, but you're going to find that anything in agriculture, whether it's crops or livestock, there are always the risks of pests and pathogens, etc. Primary production, value added, and those pathogens are no respecter of scale. And so the importance of biosecurity is critical. Certainly as a company, we place a lot of emphasis in transferring and sharing knowledge and best practices on biosecurity with small farmers who are in the same business as we are. Because a risk to a small farmer is a risk to us. And so there has to be that mindset of strengthening the industry, not just individual businesses. And I think even as we sort of increase our value added and further processed outputs, there has to be that mindset to ensure that the knowledge is being spread to make the industry stronger and to facilitate even greater growth and production.
And to that point, Minister, under the National Agricultural Strategy, I mean, is there a targeted approach for specific crops, specific agro-processing, so that we don't have this periods of vast gluts and then prices go down? Is it going to be managed and targeted in a specific way?
Well, I mean, you've answered it. The answer is yes. Importantly, investors should know that with Jamaica, you have a climate of partnership. And I think it's very important for an investor looking in to be assured that you have a jurisprudence here where you can operate and be confident. You have a government that will be working with you and will be flexible enough to see your circumstances, and we've developed the policies and we'll be amending laws as needed to facilitate production and productivity. And we have a strategic plan. We have strategic plans that have identified commodities, that have identified areas of opportunity for investment, and we work across government to be able to, and across in terms of even private-public partnerships, to be able to say to investors, here is a great opportunity for exporting yams. Here's opportunities for investing in strawberries and vegetables and fruits for our tourism sector. Here are opportunities for increased value added from plantains. I mean, in the last quarter, we saw 17.4% growth in our sector for the last quarter, and 21.8% growth in terms of production of plantains. And so we're looking at plantain flour, plantain chips, plantain tarts, plantain sauce, and all of the various ranges of value added. What is important is that the primary producer wins when we are able to invest in the infrastructure and the support for value added. We are able to get more revenue in, means we're able to pay our farmers more. It means that you advance the sustainability in the sector, because that generation that is looking on sees this now as viable, because they are seeing where people are able to do the primary production, send their children to school, live a happy life. And so it's all connected, and our responsibility as a government, if you even look on this platform now, we are here working with investors, working with producers, small and large, and this is the picture of the platform that's presented for Jamaica. Investors look on and can be assured that despite any challenges, we are here to work with you to get it right. Grow smart, eat smart. That's the future of farming.
And Michael, the Minister has outlined the legal framework that we will have to protect investors. What would you like to see for the continuation of innovation and increased productivity in the sector?
I mean, the government has been so supportive. I mean, I think what, like the minister said, we're very aligned. From a de-risking standpoint, we don't need much. We need to go and do. I mean, I think it's a question of action now, and that's what I like doing. Is actually, okay, we're going to do a project. Like, we're going to start small. We're going to be intelligent about it, and then we're going to expand. And we know that we have a partner that will expand with us, and that will be willing to do that. I think this may be simplistic, but I think in agriculture, like, the solution's in the soil. Like, we can throw a bunch of technology at it, but ultimately nature-based solutions, which is what we support, is going to be the solution. I think throwing a lot of technology at a very basic, seed, grow, nurture process, after a while doesn't work. Right. I mean, I think there's innovation that can occur post-harvest, but at its core, you just need to grow smart, grow right, and see the benefits of that for the farmer and the communities.
Are there any strategic crops or aquaculture or any specific areas within the agri-processing business that your firm or investors should look at in particular for Jamaica?
Well, I mean, I was surprised that Jamaica's a net importer of coconuts. It's crazy. And this with the tourism sector the way it is, there's no reason that Jamaica should be importing coconuts. So that's a rather obvious supply demand. Let's go address that issue, which is why we're starting with coconuts. Like I said, we're focused on native crops, not necessarily in Jamaica, but in other parts of the world. Again, we want to respond to developers that come to us with a very developed plan that we can support. So we're kind of agnostic to crop. Again, though, another thing that when I was speaking to Shelley yesterday, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there is not a cold storage facility for produce on the island of Jamaica. And we do, we have cold storage. We're funding cold storage in Morocco and Senegal. That's something that we can work on, and we all should be working on immediately, right? Because that reduces waste, that's a mitigation strategy, and you, to the extent that you reduce waste, you can feed more people with the same amount of output. So that's just a kind of very basic thing that we can look at.
Well, thanks for the information. I wasn't aware that we actually imported coconuts.
What's that?
But that's good to know. But in regard to that, Minister, I mean, based on our strategic locations, we're neighbors to some of the largest markets in the world. We have the best tourism program in the world. How are we best looking at agriculture to target A, those markets, and B, the market that we have for tourists here in Jamaica?
So we work directly with the Ministry of Tourism and of course Industry, Investment and Commerce to define the linkages. We actually have a tourism linkage agency, and we have worked on platforms that will allow for us to have that market-driven approach, understanding and disaggregating the numbers in terms of expansion of tourism, in terms of the demand in the sector, so that we can see that the focus on production, the focus on specific commodities and products will be connected directly to that demand and to the projections in terms of expansion of that demand. That's very important in us having what we call the growth smart approach. It's a more efficient approach which will see the increase in production, seeing it also correlated to a reduction in loss. So the cold chain storage is a critical aspect of that, because as we increase production, we know that you don't want a situation where you have high production and glut, and then low productivity through drought or floods or something, and you don't have any availability of produce. So you have to have a more resilient approach for availability and affordability, which is food security. That comes from putting in place the infrastructure. So we have the linkages, market-driven approach, putting in place the infrastructure through cold chain storage and other things that are necessary for us to be able to have produce throughout the year. And all of that comes together and is capped off now by the government providing the support, whether it is through roads, whether it is through incentives in terms of resources for the farmers, the small farmers that help to provide for the larger farmers, and creating the context and the framework for us to be able to provide on a consistent basis the quality product that Jamaica needs, the region needs, and the world wants. You have coconuts, you have coffee, you have cocoa, you have several other things. I mean, when you think about even the scare that we have had recently in terms of the dislocation in the supply chain and the concerns around flour, for instance. You have several producers now that are looking into breadfruit and sweet potato and cassava as gluten-free alternatives to help supplement, the demand that people have for a different type of product. As we evolve, you have more persons who want more nutritious products, gluten-free products. So all of those we look on from the ministry, and we see opportunities in terms of projections. The last thing I'll raise as an opportunity, you mentioned it briefly, is aquaculture. The fisheries sector presents one of the most practical opportunities for investment. We have 24 times marine space than we do land space. And we're not even tapping into the demand or able to meet the demand in terms of our own fish farming and even the capture fisheries. Not to mention the fact that we have a great opportunity for investment in terms of pelagic fishing, the deep sea fishing, because we have a lot of tuna swimming past us and going down south where they are caught. So it means that we have enormous opportunity for pelagic fishing, for sea moss, for oyster farming, for sea urchins, and several other things that we have had many countries call on us and to say, listen, Jamaica, if you can get this right, we have the market, we are ready to go.
Thank you, Minister. As we trend down, for you, Jamie, ag tech is agricultural technology is vitally important in the agribusiness sector right now. I know that the transition, or even of chicken houses, has been tremendous. How do you see the support of ag tech, and what do we need to do as a country to improve that for the sustainability of agriculture?
There's definitely opportunities here. I mean, when we talk about things like vertical farming, precision agriculture, the genetic side, the minister spoke about it, artificial insemination, embryo transfer, those are low-hanging fruit for an investor in Jamaica to bring this approach and technology in to increase efficiency, improve productivity, and certainly I believe that I know the ministry has been building out a framework. Minister alluded to the productive inputs relief program that they have to facilitate the importation and the adaptation of those sorts of technology. There definitely is scope, and it will definitely have a positive effect on overall production and our efficiency.
Thank you. As we come to close out this sector now, Michael, would you like to give us some closing remarks?
I'll just reiterate what I said at the beginning. I am thankful for the invitation to be here, and we're excited as an investor, given that we have a mandate to invest in 42 countries across CARICOM, Latin America, Africa, and in Asia, and we're starting here. And we're starting here for the reasons that we heard from the ministers and from the Prime Minister yesterday. It's a wonderful place to do business. It's open for business. And I woke up thinking about Pulisic's injury, but then I thought about Jamaica. So, we're excited to be here. We find that it's easy to do business, and in the agricultural space, which is one of our foci, in addition to hospitality, it certainly checks the box very, very strongly.
Thank you. Michael, your closing remarks and the future progress of Jamaica Brothers?
So, the potential is quite significant. Outside these doors, there are 5 million visitors that come to this country every year. And then there's the CARICOM market, and then there's beyond. And we have a great opportunity to leverage our knowledge, our talent, in terms of our human resources, superimpose some technical resources on top of that, increase our production, and really and truly the sky is the limit. As the minister said, now really is a good time to invest in agriculture. Everything is aligning. There is stability. There you can plan. You can plan, for the medium and long term and what those returns are going to be for you, and they are very attractive. And I think now the future is bright.
Thank you. And Minister, the last word goes to you.
There is no better time to invest in agriculture and fisheries than now. The government is your best partner. We are excited to welcome you to Jamaica. We are putting in place the policies, the plans, the framework, all that you need to be successful. We have young people here who are excited about farming, about fisheries. They're being trained in Costa Rica, at CASE, and across the world to introduce remote sensoring and drones and all of the innovation that's going to help your investment to boom. We work across government and with the private sector to make sure that we can attack the challenges. We're not perfect, but you don't want to invest in perfection. You want to invest now before you can't invest. So as I said earlier, if I'm an investor and I'm looking on a government opening its arms on a people who are ready for you and even locally present you with enormous opportunities for providing a tourism sector that's expanding, a region that has a collective partnership around import substitution, and a world that says this particular brand is special, I choose Jamaica.
Thank you, Minister. It's obvious that agriculture and therefore the agribusiness sector is in very capable hands. This now closes out this section. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen. This was panel discussion on agribusiness. And if I may, just for 2 seconds, agriculture happens to be something near and dear to my heart. For persons who don't know, I actually graduated as a doctor in veterinary medicine. I studied veterinary medicine in Cuba for 6 years. Y por eso yo hablo español. And for the 6 years in Cuba, what they did was they grouped us, veterinarians. We worked right there with agronomists. Agriculture is actually no different from veterinarians, according to the Cubans. And if there's one thing I learned from them, it's the understanding of what food security means. My daughter is 10, and she can tell you about coding, she can tell you about robotics and developing, she can tell you about lawyer and doctors, but somehow when it comes to farming, it isn't a profile, even within our country, that is elevated. We understand that food security is important, yet still, I think from primary school and prep school, we need to start teaching our children the importance of this food security. And the images of a farmer being either poor or broke or in the sun and downtrodden, we need to also have images where we see the usage of drones and fancy equipment and technology for them to actually understand that agriculture can be something absolutely sexy. So the importance and, of course, how to leverage technology. That was just my 2 cents for this particular panel discussion. After that, could you kindly turn your attention to the screens?
Delighted to announce our partnership with GSS in the rollout of their GSS Talent Hub. The GSS Talent Hub is going to foster an accelerated connection between job offer and demand and bring economic opportunity and growth to Jamaica.
At Link 10, enabling economic opportunity at scale is our job.
We at LinkedIn are delighted to announce our partnership with GSS in the rollout of their GSS Talent Hub. The GSS Talent Hub is going to foster an accelerated connection between job offer and demand and bring economic opportunity and growth to Jamaica.
At Link 10, enabling economic opportunity at scale is our job. We want to connect every member of the professional workforce in the world to opportunity. To help tackle this mammoth task, we use artificial intelligence to assist with everything from finding our members the right job openings to surfacing better candidates for our customers. With AI, we're able to efficiently sort through the massive amount of data we have. Job postings, people you may want to connect with, feed content, and more, and align recommendations with members' interests.
And to GSS, fantastic job. So just a reminder before we dive into our next panel discussion, if you haven't already registered for your B2B meetings that are scheduled for today, kindly go ahead and do so on the event platform. We will be having our site visits conducted today, and I believe upon registry, a lot of you might have indicated your interest in it. Kindly confirm your attendance based on the site visits you'd like to make. You may do so at JAMPRO. If it's the first time you're hearing about these site visits and you'd like to find out more, again, visit the JAMPRO booth. Lastly, our pitch platform, the very final pitch platform, will take place at the end, at the back, to the left. And finally, for those of you who are not present at the pitch platform, there was a Jamaican short film that was played. Anyone here in the room was there? Absolutely. For those of you who missed out, it was a brilliant 4-minute short film that was done by Jamaicans, and it left us all in awe. In fact, if no one told us, we would have thought it was a Pixar production or a Disney production. And that is why my pitch to JamPro and Invest Jamaica 2022, my pitch, is that hopefully the next year or whenever it is you do stage another one, that we will have a panel discussion for the creative industries all for themselves. That 4 minutes represented talent and ecosystem from animation to director, producers, costume designers. They're in the room right now, and they require not just a platform, but access to investment and resources. And so I think this is another area that is just absolutely untapped, and I'm hoping that we'll see the creative industries represented in its space. That's just my pitch, and I'm done. Okay, and I'm done. So, panel discussion number 6, Special Economic Zones, SEZ, the Jamaican proposition. The establishment of Jamaica's competitive special economic zones regime and the Logistics Hub initiative provides an opportunity to capitalize on the global phenomenon of continuing industrial fragmentation. Linking incentives for Jamaica's SEZs and global supply chain challenges with the geographical strategic advantage of Jamaica all converge to improve Jamaica's potential of becoming the 4th node in global trade. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we will discuss its importance. Our moderator is Charles Fitzgibbon, VP Sales Conway Inc. Mr. Fitzgibbon has a diverse background of problem solving in retail, manufacturing, advertising, publishing, and human capital management. Kindly put your hands together for our moderator. And joining him are our panelists. Kelly Dawn Hamilton, Acting CEO, Jamaica's Special Economic Zone Authority. Ms. Hamilton has over a decade of experience in policy development, international trade, public relations and communication and business advocacy, and developed national strategic plans and strategies for both public and private sector entities. Welcome, Ms. Hamilton. We now say hello to Melanie Subrati, Chairman of JamPro and CEO of Stanley Motor. She's an astute business leader with an impressive career spanning 20 years of both operational and strategic roles in insurance, information technology, telecoms, food distribution, and manufacturing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Melanie Subrati. And last but certainly not least, Linda Langford, Country Director, Conduent. Her expertise and leadership have been a driving force in Conduent's position and growth in Jamaica. As the Country Director, Ms. Langford is responsible for all aspects of employee, facilities, and client satisfaction. Ladies and gentlemen, panel discussion number 6, Special Economic Zones, the Jamaican proposition.
Thank you for that great introduction. Isn't she fantastic? I actually did her job. I was the MC for an event in May. It was the World Forum for Foreign Direct Investment held in Scotland, and I know how difficult it is to do that. And the energy she brings, she's an amazing asset. I also know what goes into producing an event like this, of this size and magnitude. The quality that I've seen here is stellar. This is my first time in Jamaica, and I am so impressed with the people. I want to thank JamPro for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here. And they did inform me that we were running a little behind, so we'll try and jump right into this. But first, I'm a little bit of a data geek. The Conway Projects database is something I'm in almost daily. And when I heard all the talk about billion-dollar projects, and I knew I was going to be talking up here about special economic zones, I started to wonder how many of those billion-dollar projects I've been reading about lately in Site Selection magazine have landed in special economic zones. Turns out many of them, especially in the US. Over the last 12 months, we have recorded $157 billion plus projects in the Conway database. That's global, but there is a good chunk that have landed in the States, and those that have landed in the States have been in or around special economic zones. So certainly the time seems to be right to be making investments in special economic zones to attract that corporate audience. With that said, I want to start off with our first panelist, Ms. Kelly Dawn Hamilton. And my first question is, as the legislative authority that guides the development of SEZs, what plans are in place to improve the attractiveness of the zones for developers?
Thank you very much, Charles, for that question. So I think in order to contextualize, we need to contextualize SEZs in order to have a discussion on what we're doing to attract them. So the whole special economic zone regime started in 2016 or was implemented with the development of the Special Economic Zone Act. And it was really an effort to ensure that Jamaica was in compliance with our WTO requirements. The government also took the opportunity to modernize what was formerly the free zone regime. So we're now in the space of special economic zones where we provide a raft of incentives to investors to make it attractive to do business. So we're talking about the application of duty-free imports for anything that is being brought into the zone. If you're looking at purchasing locally, then you do not pay the general consumption tax or VAT. That is 0%. We're looking at transfer tax release. Asset tax relief. We're looking at a relief of taxes on dividends. So the special economic zone regime really provides an incentive to do business. For our developers, their corporate income tax rate on rental income is 0%. For occupants operating businesses within the zone, their corporate income tax rate is 12.5%. And if you position that against what operates outside of the zone, you're looking at 25% under the omnibus incentive regime. And so the SEZ is really a catalyst for doing business in Jamaica. The 12.5% can also be reduced to a further 7.75% with the application of promotional and employee tax credits. So the SEZ is really providing an opportunity for businesses to come in and do business competitively on a global scale. As it relates to the vision for our special economic zones in Jamaica, we are in the process. We have developed 4 concepts along what we have termed the lifestyle belt, which will run from Montego Bay to St. Anne's Bay. And we're looking at building out 4 zones, or facilitating the build out of 4 zones that we'll look at. In one instance, we have what is called the Pandora zone, and that zone is looking at the development. It's an eco-industrial park where we'll be looking at pharmaceutical, nutraceutical manufacturing, and all the elements that surround that. And the intention is to build out over 1,000 acres of space dedicated to that activity. And we're looking at an integrated zone. The second zone that we're looking at is Olympus, and Olympus will be a sports hub. Now, I think we all know when we talk about Jamaica, we can envision why Jamaica should have a sports hub. And Olympus is intended to facilitate that. So we're looking at developing manufacturing around sporting, facilitating NBA teams or the World Cup teams that will need to, after the World Cup, have some downtime, do physiotherapy, get back into the training routine. We want to provide those facilities within Olympus. We're looking at building out our own version of Silicon Valley in what we call the West 77 Technopolis, right? And that we're dedicating over 300 acres of space to that. And for the creative industries, we're looking at developing a special economic zone, which we have called Xanadu. And the intention is to facilitate the build-out of film production facilities, manufacturing, and everything related to that space, that creative space that we have been talking about, so that our creatives can operate within the special economic zones and access those benefits. So our vision is to create townships, integrated townships that drive development. Our objective is to facilitate economic growth and to help businesses to operate competitively and efficiently in Jamaica.
Thank you so much for that. And Melanie, as a key player in the development industry, what competitive advantages do you see in the special economic zones and the logistics hub initiative for potential investors?
Okay, so thank you very much. So just a little background, Stanley Motor Limited is essentially a commercial real estate park, 215,000 square foot of real estate space with sort of total assets about 6.5 billion Jamaican dollars, that is. And it's a new Kingston hub, but the SEZ has really allowed us to facilitate and to continue the growth that we just generally have had in construction. And all of the tax concessions that Kelly Dawn just mentioned, I mean, this is an Invest Jamaica forum, so let me just run through them again. We are a developer, we have developed space for special economic zone, facilitating BPO. And if you think about it, the most important thing is obviously making sure that the incentives are there for the occupant, which is the BPO facility. And what we've found is all of those incentives on rental income, the duty concessions that have enabled us to build and construct at a competitive rate, not just nationally, but globally. You have to remember that, for BPO, we're competing regionally and globally for people to locate in Jamaica. And I think the success of, all of these companies coming to Jamaica has really been reflective of the efforts that the SEZ has put in and JAMPRO has put in. And in terms of, the incentives, I would also say that, we had a piece of land that was pretty much underutilized. And I knew nothing about property development before we started doing this. I was selling corned beef and food. So, JAMPRO and the SEZ really were there to hold hands and make sure that we were able to do the thing properly according to all the rules. And the facilitation that is given, it is absolutely incredible. And I would say that the government and the political will is there to facilitate other people to be successful in this space. And we're building out another 100,000 square foot starting in January. And we have also, separate parts of other companies that I'm invested in have also invested in other developments where in separate companies we have developed over 300,000 square foot of more commercial real estate. And so you can see that, it is attractive, it does give you a good return, and it does enable all of the participants all the way through the chain that are involved in a development.
Thank you. Ms. Linda, from your perspective, from Conduit's perspective, what do you think has contributed to the success of the SEZ regime in Jamaica?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to be here. Conduit has been here for over 30 years. We're the longest standing BPO on the island. And what has helped us to be sustainable and to be here, and to what help makes the success of the SEZ, I think, is our collaboration, our partnership. We all are in it to win it. And we are here for the success of Jamaica. With organizations like the SEZ, like JAMPRO, like the GSAJ, we work together. We voice our opinions. We have an entity like the SEZ who is kind of is our support structure. The Prime Minister yesterday mentioned good government and good governance. And I think that's where the SEZ comes in. They're the governance. They help us to create that structure, that foundational success structure. And with the collaboration, it's nice to be able to, as an industry player, to be able to sit at the table with the organizations who help us to create the foundation, to navigate that foundation, and to support us. And it's wonderful to be able to sit at the table with them, to voice what we need to be successful in the industry, our visions for success in the industry, to sit at the table, to have their ear, and then for them to be our voice to the government, to help promote the growth and the expansion of our industry. And I think that is where the success of the SEZ has really been. They're a collaborative player. They listen. They are a team player for the benefit of our industry. And I think that's where their success really lies.
Thank you for that. And Kelly, can you tell us, what is the 5-year outlook for the SEZs?
So for us, well, let me tell you a little bit about what exists now. We have 142 SEZs operating in 172 locations in 10 parishes in Jamaica. Of course, Melanie and Lynn operating a lot of those facilities as well. As it relates to our 5-year outlook, what we want to see is the build-out of the large-scale SEZs. We want to see more investment within the special economic zones. And what we want to do too is to be purposeful in what we're creating so that we create clusters of excellence, so that there are supporting mechanisms for businesses operating within zones. And for those businesses that are not able to access SEZ incentives, that they provide support to the zones as well. So our minister would have shared yesterday that the government is intent on de-risking investment projects, on bringing the utilities right to the gate. And that is the type of thing that we at the authority will be facilitating with JAMPRO, with all the agencies across government that facilitate investments. So we intend to, and Lynn just said it, we have to work together in order to facilitate the growth. We have to work together to achieve the vision that we see for Jamaica. And at this point, Jamaica is open for business, and our vision is to get to those $1 billion investments and then the $5 billion and all that we will achieve thereafter. And so we have to do that through partnership, focused efforts, collaboration, and just continued conversations. As Lynn said, while we regulate the space, we have to be aware of what is happening on the ground, what are our operators facing, and be adaptable in order to help them to achieve the objectives that they have set out as businesses, and for us as a country as well.
And incentives are important, right? Especially to developers. From a developer's perspective, can you comment on initiatives provided by the SEZs and the ability to attract business?
Yeah, I think, firstly, obviously, as a developer, you're looking for tenants. So, you need to be, we're essentially building for the market. So I would say the SEZ benefits itself are also attracting the BPO and logistics because, let's be clear, SEZ is not just about GSS, BPO, it's about logistics too. And Kelly Dawn just mentioned a whole variety of industries that it's looking to facilitate. And if it can be any way as successful as it has been in the past 5 years with the other industries, this is obviously going to be game-changing for Jamaica. Obviously, the tax-free construction in terms of the duty concessions and the GCT concessions, the rental income that is tax-free, the tax concessions for the tenants. And I think that we shouldn't ignore one of the large incentives, and this is probably something that, the operators are, obviously more able to talk about. But, let's not forget about our people. Like on a daily basis, the most prominent brands in the world, we've just had, Cyber Monday and Black Friday or whatever. People have been online blasting all of their purchases. But the best brands in the world are choosing Jamaican people and to locate in Jamaica to represent their brands in terms of outsourcing and nearshoring. And I think that should be recognized. People aren't just coming here for the tax incentives. there's something that we have too that is great. So I think that shouldn't be ignored. And then in terms of, you know, the incentives, I think we also need to, I mean, at the moment I'm a developer and we have really only just scratched the surface of what developers can offer their tenants. And I went to the Free Zone conference recently that was put on. And one of the things that I learned when I sat down for lunch with people who had free zones all over the world was, you know, the services they were offering their clients inside the free zone weren't just rental. They were, you know, hiring staff for them. They were providing food. They were doing training. They were, the learnings that come from looking at other SEZs globally. I met some person who had an agricultural, basically a space where people were bringing agricultural products in, and he was negotiating the rates for the sale of some of these products, and some of it was cotton and some of it were other products, but they were the middle way to the luxury goods market in France. And those are areas that we're just not seeing. So I mean, I think there is definitely an opportunity for developers, for manufacturing, and for agribusiness within the SEZs. And I think just having those people recognize that they can gain these benefits is going to also be key to growing as well.
And Ms. Linda, the global services sector is now a critical pillar in Jamaica's economy. What more needs to be done to increase activity in Jamaica's SEZs?
Well, I'm sitting here and I'm nodding my head because Melanie, it's like you stole my notes. The GSS is pivotal to the success and the longevity of our industry. It truly is. The GSS program has been phenomenal, and it continues to be. Yes, yes. Conduent has been a proponent of the GSS since its inception. I sit on the board of the GSS, and we're actually, as part of the apprenticeship program, we actually have 68 graduates, and we have 188 who are in the program currently. And so it is a phenomenal program that is going to benefit Jamaica. It's going to benefit and upskill our labor pool. So where the SEZ, what more needs to be done? I think if we can get more visibility as to the importance of programs like the GSS. Yesterday we heard that there were, I think it was over 20 training institutions that the government has, and there's another 80 training institutions that they have access to. We need to bolster that, right? We need to use that. We need to get that in front of the government and the powers that be to make them understand the importance of programs like the GSS. What I think other things that where the SEZ can play a pivotal role is looking regionally, right? Going out, looking what's the competition? Because what's the competition offering? What are other countries offering to incentivize investment? Because we, in the BPO industry, in the KPO and ITO industry, we compete on a global level. We compete regionally. We also compete globally. And so when our clients come to Conduent and they have an RFP and we answer that RFP, we look at and we say, where can we be successful at fulfilling this request? And so we will look, we're in 24 countries, so we've got options. And it will be imperative for an entity, and I think the SEZ is positioned beautifully to play this role, to look regionally, to look globally, to look around and see what else, how can we boost our investment opportunities? How can we entice more people to invest in Jamaica? Because as you have all heard for the last 48 hours, Jamaica is the place to invest. And, you know, we've got wonderful support from our government. The government is full-fledged, has been, and they are in support of growth of the BPO sector. We have our partners like the SEZ. We have our partners like JamPro. And you can't fail when you've got that stable foundation, but we need more, and we must remain competitive. So to a role that I think SEZ can play is bolster the importance of the GSS programs and learning it and the learning programs, and look regionally as to what other countries are offering for investments.
And Kelly, can you share some of the best kept secrets for operating within the SEZs?
So, well, it's not a secret anymore. I mean, we're quite collaborative. That is the key to our success. Operating the Special Economic Zone Authority, we could not do it without the entities that have SEZ status. We could not do it without our private sector. We couldn't do it without the partners across government. And that is the crux of how we operate, understanding from our partners, not anecdotally, but hearing from them on a consistent basis. One of the things that Melanie said earlier in our pre-discussion was that it feels like we have been talking for a few days about this panel, and it is just part and parcel of how we operate as partners within this space. The other thing that we're looking at too, and Lynn just said it in relation to training and being able to have the labor force to operate within all the spaces that I mentioned earlier, the 4 SEZs. We are working with HEART, and we're working with other training entities to help with the upskilling, and our role as a Special Economic Zone Authority is really to provide the data. This is the information for the players existing in the industry. This is where we intend to go. This is how we intend to get there. And so this is what we need. So we are proactive in our approach. We're proactive in how we build out our SEZs. In terms of any other secrets, I don't think we have any other secrets per se, but because our vision is very clear and our mission is very clear, our objective is to increase the cadre of investments that we have in Jamaica through this regime. And I think that we're all seized of the opportunity that has been presented to us in the moment. And so we must act on that, and we must work with our partners to get things done. Right? And to get things done right. Our special economic zone legislation would have gone through amendments, and that is because of the OECD requirements. And so we have had to move through that with our partners as well. And you know, the truth of the matter is, it is something that will come up from time to time, but we will always be able to have a piece of legislation that facilitates business, because we're getting feedback from the industry, and because we're looking at things in a holistic way, and we're looking at making it work. So that is our focus and our objective.
And so talking about current plans to improve or enhance the current legislation, you know, do you have any firm plans coming up to make the zones more competitive globally?
So our mission to make zones more competitive really lies in our ability to continue with the partnerships. I feel like I'm being a little repetitive, but the message is very clear on how we intend to operate and how we will achieve success. In terms of any upcoming amendments, no, there are no immediate amendments to the legislation at this time. But as it relates to how we will continue to be competitive, and Melanie said it earlier, is through the World Free Zone Organization, we have an opportunity to encourage existing SEZ operators to become members. The Special Economic Zone Authority is a member, and it is through that sharing of information that we will unearth more opportunities for our developers, for our occupants, and for persons that will come into the Special Economic Zone regime. So that is our immediate plan. in terms of any changes and enhancing the SEZ regime.
And Melanie, what major improvements are you looking forward to?
Okay, I do have a shopping list. No, I'm joking. All right, so one of the things I'd say is a good parent is always reliable. So the reliability of the regulator, which is essentially what the SEZ is, it's a regulator and a partner, and the reliability to know that nothing's gonna be changing anytime soon, that these are the rules that you just told me, you're not making any changes, that you know where you are and you know where you're going, and I think that stability is great for investors. We've talked about the digitization of processes, and there is amazing work. I wish that people could see the work that's being done to digitize some of the government processes. Really, really incredible. But I would say, for a developer in the planning process, there are a lot of sort of unsung heroes who work in the NWC, at NEPA, in all of these, the NWA, KSAMC, and probably here in Montego Bay as well. And the thing is that it's relying on those individuals to make sure that the process moves forward. And what we really need to do is rely on the process to make sure that the process moves forward. So that digitization is key. Shalette referenced yesterday, this exciting thing where, the titling of land is going to be looked at. And the minister earlier in the agricultural segment mentioned, if you're abroad and you've inherited 200 acres of land, come back and, you can start thinking about how you would use that land. So I think the titling piece to that is super important. And right now it takes a little bit of time to get titles splintered and organized in a way that's easier to collateralize them with a bank. Benchmarking is so important. A lot of times we're talking about the things that Jamaica could do better, and we're not, this is the World Cup time. We know, everyone knows where their team sits, who in the team is going to be doing great. But, in this region, we need to know better, which countries have decided to make a bold move in terms of a new incentive or in terms of a new policy. And we need to definitively know exactly where we are benchmarked within our competition so that we can remain competitive. And I told you I had a list. Data, I think, is really important. Conduit's been here, 30 years? And Statin certainly doesn't have 30 years worth of data on the BPO industry. It's got maybe 60 years worth of data on lettuce grown in a certain parish in St. Elizabeth, but it doesn't have that granular data on such a massive pillar of our economy. And that's really, really key. I think other major improvements as well, acknowledging the need for clean energy, which was mentioned earlier, climate initiatives, and making it easier for developers and for people in the industry to be able to access that expertise and being able to be climate smart for the future is going to be very, very key. But also, I think, just to end, the energy and political will that we obviously sort of see seething through in this room in terms of energetic positioning of Jamaica as a place to do business. I hope I don't ever see that energy decrease, and I just hope I see it just go up and to the right, as it were. So yeah, that would be my list.
And my last question is for Ms. Linda. As an operator located in SEZ, you shook your head yes, that you're making a profit. Can you speak to the benefits and what ROI looks like for Conduit?
Absolutely. Melanie mentioned it before, and bar none, it's our people. The benefits that we have seen that has enabled us to be here for 30 years is our people. Yes, we have world-class facilities. Yes, our infrastructure is good, getting better. Yes, we've got the support of a government who is embracing and encouraging growth. Yes, we've got entities like JAMPRO, like the GSAJ, like JCESA, who helps us to move forward. But without a doubt, it is the labor pool that has made us, because without happy clients, we don't have a company, we don't have a business. And so it is the talent pool that has helped us to be so successful here. As I say, we've been here 30 years. We will be here for a long time, I hope. But the programs that, like the GSS, help us to upskill our employees. And with that upskilling, it enables us to then work closer with our clients to meet their demands at a higher level. And so it also allows us as a company to reinvest and recommit and to work and be very strategic in our positioning, and being here in Jamaica. It's very easy to do that because of the talent pool that we have. So not only the tax benefits and things like that, but our true benefit, our true asset is just our people. Yeah.
Thank you so much. In closing comments, Kelly?
The Special Economic Zone Authority has a booth at the back. We're ready to accept your applications for SEZ. We are here to serve, and we're here to help you through the process of establishing in Jamaica and just growing your business.
Taking applications. I love it. Melanie?
I would just reiterate that just to say that, Stanley Motor Limited, we benefited from that expertise and from that energy, and we've been able to deliver an excellent return to our shareholders. We're listed on the Jamaican Stock Exchange, and for those of you who don't know, we have an all-female board, but that's nothing to do with this. But I'm just putting one out for the ladies here. But what I would say is that opportunity to have an investment and to see the return and to list on the stock market, that is open for so many people in this room, and and the SEZ are the people who are going to facilitate it with JAMPRO, and they do a phenomenal job.
Ms. Linda.
So, hopefully over the last 48 hours, you have heard that Jamaica is so much more than sun, sea, and sand. We are open for business. We've got the infrastructure set up. We've got the support organizations set up. We've got players who have tried and tested the environs. And it is truly just a phenomenal place to invest. So yeah, I guess I would just say, instead of number 3, like the Prime Minister asked yesterday, make us number 1.
Thank you so much. Give it up for the panelists, folks. And so that concludes this session, and I think I got us back on track, and we should be inching towards lunch here.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for this panel discussion. Special Economic Zones. Now, I know that Melanie Sobrati said, she just kind of mentioned all-female board had nothing to do with it. I'm going to give us an opportunity to applaud that moment. It's not every day you walk into a room and you hear about a company and then you hear it's an all-female. Like, you hear about equity, diversity, inclusion, maybe 60-40, maybe 50-50 if you're lucky. But when someone sits up here and says an all-female board, that is absolutely magnificent. Congrats on that. Fantastic presentation. Thank you so very much for the insights that were delivered in that particular session. Now, we've discussed special economic zones. Naturally, we've been talking about different sectors, and I do believe we have a sector video. Watch this.
Think you know Jamaica? We are outsourcing. Jamaica. Do business Jamaica. Think you know Jamaica. Now you know Jamaica. Do business Jamaica. Think you know Jamaica? We are manufacturing. Now you know Jamaica. Do business Jamaica. Think you know Jamaica? We are tourism. Now you know Jamaica. Do business Jamaica. Think you know Jamaica? We are agribusiness. Now you know Jamaica. Do business Jamaica.
Jamaica, home of the resilient, passionate and hard-working. A people and a nation who have achieved and defied all odds, working to keep their economy growing, their country thriving, from investments made in innovative opportunities and exports demanded globally. We have a vision now within our grasp, where Jamaica becomes the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. We will not let go of this vision. We will grow. We will overcome these challenging times and look to the future with hope and positivity. These are special times. The world as we know it has changed, but home will always be in our hearts. And in Jamaica, you can always find a home. Think you know Jamaica? Look again. You will be surprised.
Beautiful videos categorizing all the various sectors. So ladies and gentlemen, our final panel discussion for Invest Jamaica 2022 is this one. Jamaica's financial ecosystem, the gains of the Jamaica market. The Jamaica Stock Exchange has been recognized internationally by Bloomberg as the #1 performing exchange in the world for 2015 and 2018, underscoring the advancement and maturity of Jamaica's financial sector. The legislative framework being implemented by the Jamaica International Financial Services Authority will offer multinationals and high net worth individuals new financial vehicles to establish tax-efficient entities in Jamaica under modern compliant financial legislation. The financial and investment landscape will be reviewed in this session to showcase the current and future benefits of Jamaica's financial ecosystem. Our moderator for this panel discussion is Maricela Alvarenga, Division Chief of Financial Institutions, IDB. Please make her welcome. Ms. Alvarenga heads a multidisciplinary team that provides innovative solutions to clients through value proposals of financial and non-financial solutions to contribute to sustainable development in the region through the private sector. Our panelists are Weldon Madden, Chairman, Jamaica International Financial Services. He has over 19 years of banking experience spanning finance, marketing, risk, decision, sciences, and operations. He spent over 15 years as senior executive levels with Citigroup, consumer finance, and retail with assignments in Canada, UK, and Poland. He comes with a lot of experience. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Weldon Madden. Our other panelist, Maurice Nelson, SVP Corporate and Commercial Banking, Scotia Group, Jamaica Limited. He leads a dedicated team of corporate bankers focused on providing comprehensive financial solutions to meet the diverse needs of mid-market to corporate businesses, government, and international clients. This is, or where is, Maurice Nelson? Oh, he's on this side, okay. We say hello and welcome to Stacey Ann Tate, Senior Vice President, Investment, NCB Capital Markets Limited. Ms. Tate spearheads the development of the company's business strategy for its proprietary investment portfolios while leading the trading and portfolio management teams. She has over 14 years experience in the financial services industry, which includes experience in portfolio management, risk management, and corporate finance. This is Stacey Ann Tate. And last but not least, Christopher Williams, co-founder and CEO, Proven Management Limited. Under Mr. Williams' leadership, Proven is an established force to be reckoned with across the business landscape, locally, regionally, and internationally. His visionary outlook made Proven Group Limited the first company to list on the Jamaica Stock Exchange's US market. He is Christopher Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our final panel discussion. Number 7, Jamaica's financial ecosystem, the gains of the Jamaica market.
Good morning. Well, the last panel, but we're here very excited to tell you more about the financial system and the ecosystem itself. So I have to confess, this is my first time in Jamaica, and feeling all this energy and passion has made me think of 2 things. Either I stay and leave everything behind, or I have to come back. So I will stick with the number 2 because obviously family, work, etc. But believe me, I will be here in a couple of weeks or months. So this is the last panel, and after listening of all the real sectors, tourism, agri, global digital solutions, this is the one that really has to do with how we catalyze and how we channel all these investments. So this is a very important one. So Jamaica has been recognized internationally, as everybody has been saying, by Bloomberg. And they have also modernized the legislations. So they also implemented the digital currency during this year. So we have different players here that will talk about what the ecosystem is, what the opportunities are. And with that, I would like to start with Weldon. Welcome. So Weldon, let's start with the big picture and the involvement of GIFSA in promoting the financial sector in Jamaica, which has had a significant impact on the business and the business growth. So tell us more about the plans.
Yes, no, thank you. Before I jump into that, I just want to thank the organizers and the sponsors for this wonderful event and for putting us up right before lunch to ensure that we keep our responses tight. GIFSA was founded in 2011. Specifically against a vision of of marketing and promoting Jamaica as a preferred jurisdiction for international finance and business. And key to that is ensuring that we have a modern legislative framework, and that is where GIFSA is keenly focused, so that we can attract, the large multinationals and investors, who may have assets all over the globe to come and do business here. So that, announcing that Jamaica is open for business. And so you just have to look at the government of Jamaica's national strategy. And if you can get your hands on that, I think Section 8.2 speaks to increased access to capital. And GIFSA is keenly focused on driving that agenda. And in the medium term, 2021 to 2024, we're really keenly focused on three pieces of legislation. I'll mention one, the Segregated Accounts Company Bill. So this addresses an important mischief where in Jamaica we don't have any local legislation that allows for the segregation of one client's assets from another, particularly when it comes to like collective or pooled investment schemes. So what a segregated account company is, or a SAC, is essentially within one entity you can create segregated accounts that hold assets and liabilities that are essentially firewalled from others, including the general account of the SAC itself, right? And that has particular value for insurance companies, specific SPVs, and different securitization and derivative structures. There's the Limited Liability Company Bill. There's also the International Business Center Bill, and that is designed to promote a wide range of international business activities, such as the setting up of holding companies that could you could use these holding companies to hold assets that have for intellectual property or real property, etc. Setting up of SPVs to do a wide range of international transactions, and for companies to set up their their headquarters here. And so GIFSA is really focused on getting that that legislation out because of how important it is to having a thriving financial sector and an environment that's attractive to investors.
Wow, no, thank you so much for all of that. With all these new structures and all the new ways to open the financial sector and to have more investors, I would like to go to you, Chris. Tell me, how are you taking advantage of this kind of legislations and the new way of organizations to your business?
Well, the significant change that these various legislations have resulted in is varying the forms of intermediation. So, over the last 100 years, the Caribbean has been dominated by intermediation through commercial banking. And as we all know, the development of the economy requires capital that has less restrictions that a commercial banking license operates under. And so these moves have allowed us to create various intermediation structures, various funds, and utilize the capital market more and allow investors, globally and locally, to participate in the development in Jamaica without actually leaving their homes in New York or in Toronto or in London. And so it's been a big move for Proven that has been built totally on this structure, because our first capital raise was using SPV model, and we continue with that model today, and it has allowed us to do significant investment in Jamaica. What Weldon and his team and the government has been able to achieve is unlocking the capital that wants to come into Jamaica. Because we don't want just capital that is going to be active. We want passive capital as well, and probably even more so. And so that passive capital has been coming in through these special purpose vehicles, and allowing us to act as intermediators and drive investment. So, that's a big move. So I'm really, really happy that we have had this panel to demonstrate to the public that investment is not just in the form of active entrepreneurial ventures, but it is also in the form of passive investment through these vehicles and others, such as the traditional commercial banks, but certainly through these vehicles.
Definitely. And you mentioned also capital markets and how we're unlocking investments there. So I would like to ask Stacy, how do you see that? How do you leverage that within NCB capital markets?
So the infrastructure that has been created by the Jamaica Stock Exchange and its key stakeholders, it's absolutely tremendous. It has contributed to Jamaica's capital market being the most active and vibrant in the English-speaking Caribbean. That's a big achievement. No. We have leveraged that, and Chris has touched a bit on it. It's a big thing for the capital markets, because the exchange, the stock exchange, it acts as a conduit that brings the persons who need funds to the persons who have the risk capital to give. And so we, NCB Capital Markets, it has allowed us to perform our role as market makers. And by that I mean we do the buying and selling of securities. We create a market where there is none. And in order to do that, it significantly benefits investors locally and internationally. And it does so in three critical and important ways. And here are they. First one, as market makers, there's always a buyer there to buy and sell. And then that way, it gives investors the ability to always have current pricing. Two, it helps to take down large transactions. And we read a lot and we talk a lot about market depth, but market depth is when you can have an infrastructure that can absorb a large transaction without disruption to the market, and that's significant. And with that, it's closely tied to liquidity. And lastly, but also very important, local and foreign investors, they have the assurity of success for these primary market transactions when they come out. And why is that? Because they have market makers like NCB Capital Markets who are beside them willing to invest as investors in the primary transaction to make it a success. And I think all of us as investors, we have significantly benefit from that infrastructure and platform.
Wow. That's really important. Local and international, that's also important for the local business and for the local investors too. So let's keep up with that. Maurice, so Scotia Group recently made significant investments in its new head office and announced its entry into the general insurance business. So how do you see this growing? What do you see there in the business?
Thank you, Marcelo. Let me just extend a warm welcome to everyone and also congratulate Jampro on this conference and for inviting us to participate. Scotiabank Jamaica is a diversified financial group. We have a commercial bank that focuses on personal and business banking and payments. We have an investment brokerage that is focused on wealth management, capital markets, and trust services. We also have within the group a life insurance company, a building society. We have recently added the general insurance agency, as you mentioned, to offer end-to-end solutions to our clients. We serve close to 1 million customers, personal, business, and institutional clients across all of our business. Each of these segments, we believe, has a unique opportunity for growth, and there is synergies that can be exploited among the segments to ensure that we offer the best solutions to our clients. Our overall strategy is to leverage our local and international expertise to deliver financial solutions and advice to our customers, and also to use digital technology to enhance the services and access. Scotiabank is a subsidiary of Scotiabank Jamaica is a subsidiary of Scotiabank Canada. We have been established in Jamaica for 133 years. And a historical note is that we were established in Kingston before we were established in Toronto, where our current head office sits. We are listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange since 1968, and there's strong local ownership also in the business. So our history is tied to trade, right? We started operations in Jamaica to facilitate trade between Nova Scotia, which is part of our legal name where we were started, and Jamaica, at a time when the bartering system became inefficient. And so we have remained true to those roots. We are today a major facilitator of trade and services through our financing products, through our trade services, and our payment gateway. We have a significant global presence. We're in fact one of the largest banks in the Americas, North America, in South America, and we have had a long presence in the Caribbean. We have also expanded in the Dominican Republic recently. So when you match our international presence with our local footprint, what you will find is a natural partner that will be able to assist you in establishing your operations in Jamaica. We support Jamaica in becoming the nearshore hub of the Caribbean. We believe the elements are there, and we're really looking forward to playing our part in this role.
Great to hear. Let's talk about digitalization, and let's talk about the new legislation, the implementation of the digital currency. How are you leveraging from this legislation? Do you see any business? How are you doing it?
Scotiabank supports the implementation of the central bank digital currency. We currently have a project team that is exploring how we will integrate that into our suite of digital offerings. But I want to step back a bit just to look at what we have, how it's working, and how the CBDC will fit into the big picture. I believe all Scotiabank and all the financial institutions in Jamaica have made significant investments in establishing digital capabilities. I believe, internet banking or online banking is a basic offering in all our institutions. Personal business customers are able to view accounts, conduct transactions, do third-party transfer, move funds across institutions. We have built a local network, the automated clearinghouse. We have the real-time gross settlement system operated by the central bank, and that facilitates a lot of movement locally. Many of us are plugged into the SWIFT Alliance network, which allow us to move payments internationally, incoming and outgoing payments internationally, which facilitate all our industries, and especially persons who are establishing business here in Jamaica. So we have seen significant adoption. In our business, for instance, 95% of the transactions that are generated by businesses are being done on the online platform. So there is significant use by both personal and business customers. If you look at the trends from a business-to-business point of view, business to government, business to consumer, there is a significant use of digital technology to make payments. I believe where we're falling behind is in the consumer segment, consumer to business, consumer to government. There's still a lot of cash that dominates that segment, and I believe this is where the central bank digital currency will play its role in ensuring that we increase the penetration, especially about the non-bank, and I believe that will help us in improving the economy.
No, definitely. So modernizing the business legislative framework is another initiative for GIBSA, right? So what do you think about the next step? What will you do in terms of, for example, ESG, sustainability? How can we look into that for the financial ecosystem?
Thanks for that question. Well, just to set the context for how I'll respond, I just want to reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, I don't know if some of you might be familiar with it, right? Where at the basic level you have, your physiological well-being, then safety, and then you have love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization, right? ESG investments is obviously very important. It's a strong trend. It's perhaps a little bit elevated on that Maslow's hierarchy, right? And I think, and we're keenly focused on it, but we have to make sure that we build the muscles sufficiently at the base level so that we can be very effective at those other levels. And I don't say this in a disparaging way. A lot of the folks who are tree huggers, and I'm one, right? They've built their log cabins before, right? We're building our log cabins now, and we will hug the trees, right? So there's some key pieces of legislation that I mentioned before that we want to keep on the legislative agenda to have the muscles to be really effective as we go a little bit further up the hierarchy. But just to show you how important it is and why it's on the forefront of our minds, it's interesting that this conference is being held in Montego Bay, right? And when I used to dive in Montego Bay, in the oceans here, because I free dive, scuba dive, the reefs used to be beautiful, and they are awful looking now. I'm very sorry to say that. And the number one killer of reefs, and a lot of us don't know that, is the suntan lotion that tourists use when they snorkel over these reefs. People don't know that, right? And I mentioned that to say here that I would love to see, we're talking about legislative, and we're thinking about this. I would love to see Jamaica do legislatively what other countries have done, which is ban suntan oils that are imported, right, and create an industry for the development of local and natural suntan lotions that will protect our reefs. And so, I'm making that plug because I'm also chairman of NEPA, right? But in relation to ESG, we're very interested, and obviously that is next, but we have to build these core muscles in Maslow's hierarchy, and so we are keenly focused on specific pieces of legislation and keeping that on Jamaica's legislative agenda.
Okay, perfect. Well, we can help you with that, by the way. Yeah, at IDB and IDB Invest, we do help financial institutions and obviously the governments, and we can help with that and support you. So we can talk now that we were talking about sectors and the suntan lotion. Stacy, what sectors do you see as the ones that we should be investing or that are emerging for investments?
So I would say infrastructure, energy, and logistics. I noticed that you said emerging. None of these are emerging, but it has a meaning. It's emerging because there is still so much left to do. We have only scratched the surface. So infrastructure, let me start there. According to the Inter-American Development Bank, across the Latin America and the Caribbean, we're going to be looking at investments of up to $2 trillion US to be able to get the job done and get it done to get sanitization. We're talking about water, we're talking about energy. That's significant. But what I see in that significant figure is an opportunity. And that opportunity is to get us to where we need to go to. And infrastructure is going to be key. Now, let's step back a little bit. The Prime Minister yesterday, in his address to the team on day one, he said that the government cannot do it alone. We need public-private partnerships to be able to get that done. And that's where investors like myself and others on this stage and in the audience are going to be critical to this move. And when we think about it, let's think about something tangible, because when we can see it, we can add more oomph and it's more real to us. So NCB Capital Markets, through its alternative investments platform, Stratus, is actually a co-owner alongside the government for the Morant Bay development that is being done in St. Thomas. And that's significant because we are co-owners alongside the government. Another thing the Prime Minister said yesterday in his speech is the need for monetizing assets that the government already has. That's big. It's big in two critical ways. One, it provides investment opportunities for investors like myself and others in the capital markets to invest alongside. But in addition to that, it also provides the government with the liquidity to unlock liquidity to invest in more infrastructure products to drive growth. And again, when we put tangible examples to that, it helps us to see the vision clearly. NCB Capital Markets Limited is actually the second largest holder or shareholder in the Trans-Jamaican Highway ordinary shares that are actually listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Again, that opportunity came about because of public-private partnership, and really it shows you the importance of the capital markets, because in that one transaction, the capital markets was able to supply roughly US 90 million in that IPO, that initial public offer. And then when you add the complements from the bank and from the wider capital markets, you're talking about financing in excess of US 300 million. So the opportunity is endless. And for energy, the last one, even though I said 3. So in the energy sector, there's a lot to be done. We speak about sustainable investment and ESG. It is critical, because when we're investing, we're not investing for today, we're investing for the future, and we want future development and growth. So we need to, or we have a target as Jamaica to be able to consume 50% of our energy sources from renewable sources by 2030. To make that happen, it's going to take a lot of investments. It's going to take the type of capital that Chris would have spoken about, which is the flexible capital. It's going to take the long-term capital. It's going to take the kind of passive capital that he spoke about. And that's what the capital markets can bring to that. So there's significant growth there. And again, tangible examples to show the team and the wider audience that it is at work already. NCB Capital Markets has invested in quite a bit of such energy projects, and those include the South Jamaica Power Company, the New Fortress Energy Power Plant, and also to the Wigton Wind Farm. Now, when we compile all of those figures, we are looking at an investment from just the capital market segment of over US 300 million for those 3 products combined. And again, when you now incorporate the other aspects, you find that the financing and the opportunity for investments is pretty huge. And I won't, because I don't think we have time for logistics, but logistics is another key area that we're definitely engaged in.
Wow, amazing. No, we definitely need the investment, así que let's move ahead with that. Christopher, Proven has been an aggressive investor in real estate, right? So, particularly in the residential space, where do you see opportunities for new investments? Can you tell us more about that?
No, I definitely can't tell you any more about it.
Thank you.
Hell no. No, the Caribbean is a beautiful place to invest, because the demand for our lifestyle is significant. I would say it is close to a population of, 50 to 60 million people, the demand for a lifestyle. And that demand for a lifestyle comes most obviously in the form of permanent and temporary housing. The temporary housing is obvious, the hotels that pop up, and then what is happening now is that the temporary housing is widening beyond, hotels into, lodging, which would be more suites, apartments, condos, Airbnb accommodations, and then permanent housing from a mixture of international demand and diaspora demand. So it's huge. It's not the domestic population. It is a huge attractive asset because of our lifestyle, and so we continue to be big on real estate for those reasons, and and then flowing out of that is the supporting infrastructure that will be needed in terms of commercial, retail, industrial housing, in the form of warehouses, plazas, hospitals, offices, etc. So, I love the fact that we are a developing nation. It just gives you, so much opportunity for growth, and then you add to that, as I said, the fact that Jamaica's brand, just punches so much more ahead of the size of our domestic population. So as I said, I put our demand at 50 to 60 million. When you add all the components, that's where we can get to, and so I'm anxious to get off the stage so I can get back to work.
Okay, last one question. Last one. So let's go with you, Weldon. Give me a pitch on why we need to invest in Jamaica.
I think that over the last 10 years, we have built strong muscles on some key pillars, right, that would be attractive to any investor, and Stacey has spoken to some examples of these. But the pillars, fiscal sustainability, made tremendous progress there, financial sustainability, price stability, and external stability. Right. So from a fiscal stability perspective, right, there's legislation that is in place to prevent Jamaica from prevent the government of Jamaica from crowding out private investments, right? I think by 2026-27, we're supposed to hit a 60% debt to GDP ratio, right? So there's that fiscal stability that we've achieved. Price stability with the independence of the Bank of Jamaica through the Bank of Jamaica Act, with a mandate on keeping inflation within a healthy range, augurs well for investing in Jamaica. Financial stability, again, with the independence, again tied to the independence of the Bank of Jamaica as sort of the supreme regulator in partnership with the FSC, and the range of actions that they've taken to, and you've seen that financial stability over a sustained period of time, which has promoted some of the investment activities that Stacey referred to. And external sustainability, our stock of net international reserves are strong to allow us to withstand certain shocks. I think there's some other things that have taken place in that. in that sphere as well. I know you gave me a minute, right? But we've seen evidence of these pillars and how they've benefited us through increased access to capital and deeper liquidity. I think there was an FSC report that says that as of June 2022, we've had about $1.1 billion in securities through exempt distribution and close to 400 billion Jamaican dollar securities. And you know, we've seen a lot outside of that space. You know, we've seen, you know, big deals such as the cross-listing of Massey, the Trans-Jamaican Highway IPO. So the evidence is there, and we've built those strong muscles, and you know, we are a good place to invest.
Great, thank you. Maurice, what's your pitch?
So I'd start by saying that Jamaica is 1.5 to 8 hours away from all the major gateways in the Americas and in Europe. Digitally, we are 1 or 2 clicks away. We have been a stable democracy for over 60 years. We have had general consensus in terms of the economic direction. We have seen strong fiscal management that is underpinned by legislation. We now have an independent central bank that has a mandate to maintain inflation within reasonable levels. Collectively, I believe these create the conditions for stability and predictability in which investors can make a decision to invest. Once you decide to invest, in addition to JAMPRO, you will find a well-regulated, well-capitalized financial sector that can offer all the capabilities that you're likely to have in your markets. You'll find opportunities to raise capital through the stock market or through private equity. You will have the support of financial institutions for debt, capital for debt if you need it. And you'll find institutions like Scotiabank with the global presence that can assist you in navigating all the hurdles and getting established here. So I'm personally looking forward to welcome you once you have made the decision here in Jamaica.
Great. Stacey Ann.
The capital markets acts as a significant catalyst to growth. And I would say to my fellow investors, locally and internationally, to come invest alongside us in Jamaica for growth. And the capital markets experience that we have had to date has formed the base case for others in the region who are looking to develop their capital markets and to do even greater things. And if we have such a solid foundation and we continue to grow and innovate, it's only going to be better. It's a small island, but as we would normally say, we little, but we tallow. And by saying that, what it means is that we are huge. We have a huge personality, we have huge aspirations, and with those huge aspirations, we can fulfill all investors' needs as we are creative. My panelists here, they would have touched on earlier things such as digital assets, digitizing. The NCB group of companies, we have been at the pilot stage. We have worked with the central bank to be able to test the digital currency. We have our online payment platform linked to be able to facilitate that. The digital asset regime in Jamaica in the financials market, that's up and running, and persons are applying for approval to be able to engage in that sphere of the market. In this market, you need a trusted partner, and NCB Capital Markets, by extension with the NCB Group, NCB Financial Group, we serve as a sound partner to help Jamaicans and other investors to grow.
Thank you. Christopher.
Well, everything that my fellow panelists have said, I fully endorse. We are open and ready to assist and to co-invest alongside you. Any one of us here on the panel will jump at the opportunity to support the investments that you are considering. This Jamaica is in a evolution, and we have been, despite COVID, despite the global shocks that have been taking place, we have been on a fantastic path towards getting our ship in order. And we, as the private sector support, have been doing the same. So call us, give us an opportunity to support you and to assist you and to back you. So check me. Forget them, check me.
Thank you so much to the panelists. Just some closing thoughts. First, partnerships. The financial system and the financial ecosystem from all the partners are here, and they can partner with you to catalyze investments and to be the channel of these investments. Second, stability. You were mentioning stability. We've seen financial, fiscal, and stability in the country. So this is another important fact that we should take into consideration. Third, I would like what you said, Stacey Ann. Personality, the huge personality of Jamaica. So let's bring the investment here. Thank you so much, and thank you to the panelists.
Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the final panel discussion. You know, when I saw Christopher Williams here, he was also a panelist at the Caribbean Investment Forum. And I said to myself, he's behaving himself very well because he's known for being a disruptor in the space. And of course, he leaves it for last. He's like, forget everybody, call me, check me. And I said, there is the Christopher Williams I know. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end. However, I don't want you to get up and rush off just yet. I just want to thank everyone for being here, for sticking and staying with us throughout all the presentations. I'm going to invite a very special lady to do the closing remarks, and afterwards, I will give you some very special announcements so that you are able to navigate yourselves throughout the day. Our closing remarks and overview of day 2 comes by way of Stephanie Sterling, Chair of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, the place that we call JBDC. Kindly give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. As chair of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, a partner entity of JAMPO, it is my honor to close this event. I believe we've had a very informative and engaging 2 days, and I'm excited at the prospects ahead for the Jamaican financial ecosystem. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. The knowledge sharing and insights have been, in my view, invaluable. Regarding investment opportunities in Jamaica, they are endless. By way of a recap, I tried to make notes of all the insights, but there were so many key points, I'll try to do justice to them all. From the IDB Invest, James spoke about adaptation and how the climate crisis has been impacting us. He spoke about the fact that the word impossible is not in Jamaica's vocabulary, which I thought was very notable. He spoke about resilience and fiscal discipline, which was a theme that was resounding throughout all the panelists and presentations. Of particular importance to me, he spoke about the fact that the IDB is invested in having impact investors looking for places to have billion-dollar investments. And I think that that's important because $1 billion is where we're trying to be. And so I think it's important that he was telling us that they're looking for those sorts of investors. He also spoke about the fact that the IDB is looking at financial inclusion, which from a country like Jamaica, it's important that we think about everybody in the country in terms of financial inclusion. And he spoke about the fact that Jamaica is the single largest shareholder of the IDB group and a hub for IDB Invest. And so I think those points in general is heartening to me, and to show that IDB is interested, he used the words partnership. And so I was impressed by that, and I think that's a big takeaway from his presentation, and we thank him for that. In terms of agribusiness, I tried to group in terms of the presentations. He spoke about improvement, resilience, and sustainability. In terms of improvement, the panelists spoke about the fact that we want to make investments, facilitate investments, encourage investments, investment, and various examples were given as to how the government is facilitating these various factors of investment. Pegasus Capital spoke about their different funds, Subnational Climate Fund, the Global Fund for Global Reach, and the various funds that they spoke about, and agricultural space, and especially the use of the soil in Jamaica. I thought that was important. The minister spoke about the fact that agriculture gives an opportunity for youngsters to be creative, and the fact that, as Terry would have said, agriculture can be sexy, and that we can build as a country on something that is our natural resource. That was a key takeaway for me. Personally, I was not aware that planting was so popular. He spoke about flour chips, sauces, all types of things that we can do with planting. Very important from my perspective, and so I'm hopeful and excited about that aspect of it. I was surprised as well about the fact that we import coconuts, and the fact that Pegasus is looking to partner with organizations about coconuts and building on that resource. So I look forward to that as well. Pegasus ended, I thought, with a very important quote. He said, Jamaica is a wonderful place to do business, and that Jamaica is open for business, and indeed we are. In terms of the SCZ panel discussion, I was particularly heartened by the sports hub that they're building, especially in terms of the World Cup. They spoke about facilitating the World Cup teams at the end of the World Cup in terms of downtime and physical therapy, and capitalizing on where we are topically as a part of the globe. They spoke about creative industries and film production and all of these exciting things that were happening as a country, and how the SEC can assist with that in terms of the tax incentives. So those were all takeaways from me, and creating what was referred to as integrated townships that drive development. I mean, I don't know if I'm conveying exactly my excitement about an integrated township and how it is important as a nation we build on these things so that we can remain competitive globally. So I'm excited to hear about that and excited to see what that will do. Again, I'm sure I'm not doing it justice, but I'm just trying to get through all the different things. Conduit spoke about the fact that the best brands in Jamaica are choosing Jamaica, and the benefit of the labor pool, and or not just our natural resources, but the labor in Jamaica and how that gives us a competitive advantage. I thought those were important takeaways from that presentation. Lastly, in terms of Jamaica's financial ecosystem, the panel spoke about the different things that are important from a financial perspective. Near and dear to my heart is in terms of legislation and the different bills that will assist us in getting this competitive advantage, such as the Segregated Accounts Bill, the Limited Liability Company Bill, and the International Business Bill. Weldon spoke about keeping those legislations on the forefront so that we can drive development. They also spoke about, as was mentioned quite recently, in terms of digital currency and the role that the different financial institutions have played in driving that level of innovation. That's important to make, as I said, ensure that Jamaica remains competitive and that investment is driven. I was interested to hear Christopher speak about the demand for what he termed the Jamaican lifestyle, and the fact that, as evidenced by temporary housing in terms of hotels and Airbnbs, and of course permanent housing in terms of, in the diaspora, in terms of actual apartments and townhouses, etc. I personally have never heard about a Jamaican lifestyle or it termed in that way, but certainly I know that anyone who travels knows that Jamaica is a very popular brand. And certainly as chair of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. So that's a key takeaway for me, and I will be using that, Chris, in terms of intellectual property moving forward, just so that you're aware. For me, this conference has been a timely reminder that there are opportunities in Jamaica and that these opportunities are endless, and the pivotal importance of business and investment to Jamaica. As we close the session today, I hope you have scheduled your B2P meetings and carved out a space to visit the pitch platform. We'd like to express our appreciation to the following entities: the Inter-American Development Bank for being our major partner in this event through the Global Services Sector Project, the conference sponsors, Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority, United Nations Development Program, Chagwood Tours, and NCB Capital Markets. We'd also like to express our sincere appreciation to the speakers, the panelists and moderators, and to our distinguished guests for participating in what has been an impactful Invest Jamaica 2022. We do not take either your time or your active engagement and the fulsome discussions for granted. Thank you. On behalf of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and the Jamaica Promotions Corporation, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so very much, Stephanie. Great to see you. Campionites are all over in the building. I see that. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us officially, kind of, sort of, to the end of Invest Jamaica 2022. This is when you go, oh, Terry, we're going to miss you. This is when you go, oh, geez. So my grandmother used to play this song that said, good night, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. Bo, 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 bo. Okay, maybe I'm too old. Okay, never mind. Let's just scratch that. I want to thank you so very much for choosing Invest Jamaica. Thank you for being an amazing audience. You're going to make your way to lunch, which is in the same dining hall that it was yesterday. But here are a few things. For those of you who signed up for your B2B meetings via the event platform, that will take place between 2 to 6. All of these things will be running concurrently. For those of you who signed up for your site visits, that will also take place between the hours of 2 to 6. Please ensure that you are on the list at the JAMPRO's booth. Don't forget that your shuttle will be leaving at Block C. If you don't know where Block C is, a representative at the JAMPRO booth will assist you with that. The pitch platform, we have some amazing pitches that will be taking place also between 2 to 6. So choose your time very wisely. Later on, you will be invited to come back to have your closing cultural expose that will take place outside, and that starts at 8 p.m. I will handle the pitch platform. So for those of you who I will not see after this, it has been my absolute pleasure serving you in the capacity of host over the last 2 days. Thank you for your warm compliments. I thank you so very much for your words of encouragement, the compliments, the hugs, and the handshakes, and the cards. We can connect on LinkedIn later on. To my traductores, muchísimas gracias por todo. The ladies have been sitting down in that booth for the last 2 days, and I would just like us to give them a round of applause, to thank them for their service. To the hardworking staff of the Montego Bay Convention Center, we thank you. For the best production crew, main event in the back, thank you so very much. And to the amazing lady, Sherna, who has sanitized and kept us safe for the entire day, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that this will not be your last time in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Whenever you're thinking of doing business, raising family, vacationing, we hope that you will make it Jamaica. Thank you so very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
We at LinkedIn are delighted to announce our partnership with GSS in the rollout of their GSS Talent Hub. The GSS Talent Hub is going to foster an accelerated connection between job offer and demand and bring economic opportunity and growth to Jamaica.
At LinkedIn, enabling economic opportunity at scale is our job. We want to connect every member of the professional workforce in the world to opportunity. To help tackle this mammoth task, we use artificial intelligence to assist with everything from finding our members the right job openings to surfacing better candidates for our customers. With AI, we're able to efficiently sort through the massive amount of data we have. Job postings, people you may want to connect with, feed content, and more, and align recommendations with members' interests.